Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, in here, it's got the local board. What's up? We have 5 trustees. No, I don't believe so. No.
I didn't talk myself. You should cut that.
Well, folks.
I'm approaching benchmarking counting, you guys. All right, trustees, have you had a chance to review the agenda? And are there any changes or? You good?
Good.
All good. That stuff happened at the table. All right. This is for general public comments. Is there any in-person public comment? Anybody online? There's not. All right, I'm gonna skip my spiel and we will move on to new business, item number 4. We clean this up so everyone here knows more than I do. Mr. Wells, it's you.
I'll take it. Good, I'm writing down.
Or
I'll send down. It would be great. Have you got, who's online?
At the moment online, we have, and not in the meeting, Riley Hanson, and Emily Mainwaring, and Taylor Lassiter, James Sean, Michelle Swain, Lana Carter from the district, and Carrie Mizell from the district as well.
And
Oh, and, yeah, and Doug,
And Doug.
sorry, Doug, I didn't even see you, Doug, you're the only one who has your camera on, so I appreciate that.
And you can hear us.
Yes.
So you got 3 or 4 from the district office, you president, okay, and Riley with Slate. So let's, today, typically we have these meetings, and in the room, we have no one from outside, everybody's associated. So typically we have these meetings on Thursday, and we'll run them for about an hour with all 3 architect firms, and as we add our general contractors, they now are starting to come in with us. And so in these meetings, we do a lot of scenarios. So what does it look like? And so that we can make, we can help the design team craft opportunities and options so that the full board can see them. Okay, so they're really working meetings. And in that, we've had several. We don't even have all of our contractors on board yet, so we still have one left. We just brought one on last Friday. But in that context, I didn't realize that we provide updates once a month to the trustees, and you really haven't seen the sausage being made yet. And so this is where we're throwing a lot of things against the wall. I think Slate and RTA even have Crazy Ivans that you might hear about today, and they are those ideas that probably are not going to stick, but they're ideas and they're crazy and they might work. So what I ended up, what I wanted to do, and we knew that we had Kessler team out, so we have Mosaic and 8 or 9 staff members from the Kessler team. They're out in Spokane working their way back to Lolo today and back home. And so we didn't have them, so it was an opportunity time for us to have 2 firms extend the timeline, invite the trustees and make it a work session so that you can hear where they're at, all the options that are on the table, and how they're starting to craft these options A through D into maybe A and B, right? So probably a combination of all that. The scenario today, the tabletop exercise, is that I hope it's more up, move, get off your feet, look around, and really have a lot of questions and answers that you don't get at the board meeting. I'm going to transition Slade and Langless out of this conversation around 11:15-ish. As long as I can get done talking here, 11:15, 11:30, because I have SMA and Dick Anderson coming in at about 11:30. I say ish because we have food coming at 11:15. So if we transition into an end of this conversation around 11:15, 11:20, you can grab a plate, get back in here, let SMA come in with their gear and set up while you're eating. So that's that transition. And then we'll run that back out till about with them for about an hour or hour and a half, about 1 o'clock. And if you can say, great. If not, we'll catch you back up. That's the table as it's being set. Good with that? Any questions about how we're gonna roll Okay, it's a long, it'll be, I mean, it's a long period, but I think it's important for us as trustees to see what this looks like. And if you can, please share with those trustees that are not here today, that, what it looks like, and we need to make sure they are updated as well. This is recorded and it's going to be posted on our website, so they can catch it there too, right?
Correct.
It's a great conversation. Speaking well. All right, with that being said, you want to introduce your team and who you got here and where we're at?
Yeah,
And I'm just gonna let you take it over.
great.
Thank you.
I'm Jacob Augenstein. We've met many times and many more to come. Slate Architecture, I'm the principal in charge and the project manager for this project.
And I'm Scott Cromwell, also principal of Slate Architecture, and so I'm kind of the helping with design and quality control pieces of it. And then online, we have Riley Hansen, a CHS alum, and so he's on it as one of our design architects as well. And then Doug, I'll let Doug introduce himself.
Good morning, Doug Abernathy. I'm a principal here at RTA Architects, working with Slate, with Jacob and Scott on the project.
Eric couldn't make it
Okay.
today.
Then our Langless construction team.
Marcus Northfield, Langless and Associates, I'm the project manager on this.
Good.
I'm John Cole, site superintendent.
One of the two, correct?
Correct.
Superintendents. Good. Excellent. And if anybody that's not at the seat at the table, feel free, there's room. So if you feel like you're left out in the backfield there, come up. We can squeeze in if you need to get a little closer. Caitlin, Sam goes with you guys as well. All right,
Yeah,
so
so
here we are.
let me share if I can. So we did put a quick little PowerPoint together. You've seen some of these slides. We do have a little bit, I mean, we have all the Excel files, you know, in our last board update, we just kind of showed you kind of glimpses of it. But we're prepared to, like, if you guys want to delve into any of this stuff, let us know. We're happy to show you all the pieces and parts of what we've done. And then obviously a big part of this that you haven't seen is kind of these options and, you know, the crazy Ivans. Now I will precede this by saying all of these we really do believe could be working options. So it's not like we're throwing one out there that's just the Frankenstein that you don't want to use. But we have done some stuff in each of them where we're putting things in places to bring up dialect with the design advisory groups and kind of get the pros and cons. Because there really are pros and cons with everything. And I think Rex had said that the other day. It's like, man, there's good things about all of these. And so it will be kind of revamping them into that kind of option E that's looking at pieces and parts from the different. So it's not like you have to pick this one. It's like, let's pick what's good about all of them and, you know, discard what's bad about what you're about to see. Anyways, so today, obviously, you've met the three of us and Riley, he was sick, so we told him not to come in and disease us all. And then the other person that you haven't seen is Mike Riggs, and he's with RTA. And he's really gonna be heading up a lot of like the production and from their side as well too. Again, the agenda, we'll go through the schedule. A lot of this we're gonna go through quickly, but feel free if you have questions to slow us down and like be like, I want to talk more about this, because it really is a time for you to feel comfortable with what we're doing and how we're doing it. But we're gonna go through the schedule. We're gonna talk a little bit about the existing facility. And then we're gonna talk about the SWOT that we've done, and we've showed you this, but this is kind of what we use as a barometer to make sure that we're doing the things the right way that have been identified as our priorities, essentially. The concept review, which was what we really care about, and then we're gonna go through the kind of the pros and cons that the DAG has come up with and what they're seeing with each one. Again, what you're seeing here, nothing has been selected or discussed, you know, finalized. It's all just really high level working stuff. Okay, so schedule, you've seen this one. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time. This was, I think, the same schedule I had shared with you guys at the board meeting. Again, next Tuesday, we have our fourth DAG. That's where we take some of these options. We're refining them this week and early next Monday, and we'll start presenting some more updates to them. And you'll see some sketches that we're doing on the side that we'll then basically computerize and bring into the PowerPoints and the stuff that you'll see. Construction, again, we're not going to spend a lot of time because Langlis will have a much better construction schedule than I do. But right now, we are finalizing this programming and concept design, about ready to really jump into the schematic designs heavily. So this is the specific DAG schedule and kind of what the agendas are for each. So DAG 4 is reviewing the space programming, the preliminary site plans, and these floor plans that you'll look at, and kind of the modifications that we've made to them. So the existing facility, just for those that haven't seen this is the site. We're not gonna spend a lot of time. The CTE, you'll see, cursor will show. Yep, this is the CTE. This is kind of one of the main entrances into this kind of student drop off and kind of visitor parking. I think a lot of the staff kind of park back here, and it's, you know, kind of a mess a lot of times just with the layout of it. And then the student parking sits here. There is some additional, I believe this is staff and visitor parking, Brett, is that?
It is, yes, staff.
Yeah. But you'll see that at this point, there's a lot of, these red lines are kind of like your main entrances, and technically the CTE should be littered with red arrows pointing up into them because there's entrances all over that building. From a security standpoint, we do try to really make one point of entrance into buildings, if, you know, at least during the work, you know, the school days. Sometimes after hour stuff will go a little bit further and allow more entrances to be opened up for events and programs and sports. But that's one of the things that we're trying to resolve with this. This is the existing department plans that you'll see. And again, we have colors of which departments are where, how they're currently organized into the building. You'll notice that the kind of tan is instructional spaces. So these are your typical classrooms. They could be math, language. We have science. We have the CTE as green. And again, the CTE is not just shop. That can be like robotics. It could be culinary arts or yellow. Yeah, it's green on my screen. Sorry.
Light, lime
Lime green on my screen. And we have the breakout spaces, which, as you can see in here, there's not a lot. In fact, there's pretty much none right now. In fact, the library is kind of what's used as the breakout spaces, I would say, for the most part at this time.
Yes.
But you'll see a lot of breakout spaces and a lot more breakout spaces in the future plans that we'll go through. Administration is blue, and that also includes counseling and special education as well. Dining and kitchen, obviously in the basement, and obviously the central kitchen will go away. And then the gymnasium space and athletics is orange, and the media center and support is gray. That all said, these colors we're keeping throughout the rest of the plans that we'll be showing you. So we won't have to go through all the different explanations as we proceed.
What are the breakout spaces? What color? I'm just looking.
This, I just gotta make sure to say, this kind of light cyan blue would be
Okay,
breakout
so they're-
spaces. Well, they're not really in this plan right now.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, they don't really
Is
have,
that because we don't have?
they don't have.
It-
Right.
If anything, as you said, it'd be the red, which is called the media center, that is referencing the library.
Okay.
Yeah, now there is kind of one maybe spot that we might have colored blue, which is where this locker bay is at, right over here that you're
Yeah.
seeing. That kind of might be what we would consider a breakout space in the future, but it doesn't have great lighting. You know, there's things that we would do to make that a little bit better. So these are the heat maps. So these are basically us taking Brett's actual class schedules for each of these rooms and determining how many of the periods these rooms are being utilized, right? So we call it a heat map. So the stuff that's in, you know, this red, deep red is getting used essentially 8 periods a day. The stuff that is in the deep blue is the stuff that's not getting utilized more than once a day, right? You'll see that in here, there's stuff that's white. And that's for a couple of reasons. One, there's no classes planned in that area. So they might be utilizing for classes, but the actual schedule doesn't show them. So sometimes they'll do breakout places and they'll use it for other things that we don't show it's actually being class periods. One of the cool things with this is you'll notice that the weight room and the gym are used literally all the time. So that auxiliary gym piece is going to be huge for you guys. and for the school.
For PE.
Yeah. Do you have any questions on kind of what we're showing
I
there?
think it just illustrates there's a lot of work leading up just to study the circulation and the flow, let alone mechanical of the internal bones of it as well,
Yep.
to get to this point.
Yeah, and we will be utilizing this for the phasing. One, can we move? Yeah, as we start modeling classrooms, where can we put people? You know, do we need to use other spaces or modulars, or can we re-identify like where people can, you know, move inside the building so we're not sending more kids out? Does that make sense? I will say that one of the big plans, and we haven't fully vetted this, is the CTE. When it gets done, that 20,000 square feet might be a great place for having classrooms when kids are in school and needing other spaces. So it would be a temporary, let's have things happen here. Once we're done with the project, that really probably, you know, really goes away, and is not used for educational purposes at all.
Could you remind me, as you speak with that, so the old CTE building, it'll still be there, or is it gonna be taken down?
I mean, our plans are to take it down, but I don't know that that's fully been vetted. I mean, it's pretty much at the end of its useful life. Now, Scott had a great idea that it could be potentially surplus and sold. There have been projects that's been attempted with, but
Okay.
you are requiring somebody else to come in, deassemble the building, and sometimes that can get in the way of your progress forward, right? So, but this will probably happen at the end, and maybe that's something that can, you know, it can be done, it can be surplus, and maybe not.
I really haven't put any thought into keeping it around. It needs to go away. It's
Yeah, and by the,
visibility, line size, it needs to go away.
yeah, and by the surplusing, you'd be selling it, and they'd be taking it offsite and putting it up on like, as a farm shop or something, right? I mean, it would be, yeah. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So then this is actually, so we model the entire school, right? So we have to model the entire building, doors, windows, wall types. I mean, everything that's in this school, we have to spend. So I say that we're doing a lot of work. So we really are doing a ton of work on the back end that you guys don't get to appreciate to the level, but this is our Revit model of the existing building. And in 2020, we had done a point cloud, which is great. But we have to still go through the construction documents and all the old plans to make sure that we understand, you know, what the wall types are and where everything go. But it's, you know, it basically isn't a field measurement to just make sure that, because a lot of times walls move and change and maybe the as-built aren't quite updated. And so it's great. So we use all that to build this existing building. So then we can start demoing things and showing the demolition plans.
In our terms, in layman's terms, you literally open the hood up and found out where all your upright vertical beams are at, what kind of cross members and or struts you have for roof rafters, and just, you want to know everything that's holding that building up, so that when we start pulling pieces apart, that we're not compromising the integrity of the structure.
That's exactly right. So we have all the structure is now modeled into this. We have to do that before our mechanical engineers and electrical engineers can come in and put their systems into that, because they have to use our floors and walls and ceilings to attach things to, if that makes sense. So we got to do our piece, then they can do their piece. And that's kind of the way it goes throughout the entire process of this design, we'll show it getting demolished.
Close to
Yes,
expert in this building, if we're using medical terms.
yeah, we're almost,
We're developing the film now.
yes.
Okay. good.
Yeah. And we could actually do a walkthrough of the existing building like you've seen people do, but you don't need to see what the existing building looks like, because you can walk through it, but that will also be part of what we do in the new work that we do. We had talked a little bit briefly about the CTE equipment survey. Both schools are very different in their class types for the CTE for the shops. They have different equipment. And so every shop we went into when we measured the equipment, we got, you know, what type of power it needs, if it needs water, gas, air. We understand how big it is. We also understand how much clearance it needs around it to fully be utilized. Now, we're meeting with the trade skills or the shop teachers tomorrow, and we're gonna actually vet all of this equipment to see if we're gonna be needing more or removing, because they have a lot of stuff that is probably pretty old and maybe they don't use, right? So we don't wanna, plan for something that's not gonna be used. We also understand if they're using it every day, every hour, or if it's used once a week, because we can start creating spots where things can get pushed in and pulled out, for kind of like working areas if it's not actively used all the time. So in this chart, you'll see here that there is this is the existing equipment. This is the new plus or minus equipment that they need. And then you'll get the total. These totals will then give you a total square footage or area of the needed space. Now, this doesn't look at, maybe it's like if every of these floor mounted piece of equipment had their own happy hall that we didn't have to move around. And right now they are all on casters, like they literally have to move. So somebody's taking a 4x8 piece of plywood to cut it, you have to move the chop saw out of the way type of a thing so that you have room to do the work, which is an issue for like function, but it's also an issue for safety too. Like we don't want people to have to do that, especially with like welding and mechanics and automobiles. Anyways, so that's fun. We like equipment, so we get into that. We'll have to vet this with Josh and Rex and Brett. Because again, the Helena Highs doesn't have all these big CNC machines. So we need to understand what we're building around the same way. Is that fair, Josh?
I think it's important to know, like, when you do that, or we do that work, how often that machine's used, frequency use, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Whether, if it's used often, but then it gets more priority space than like a machine that's not used as much.
Yep.
We'll figure that out.
Yep. My gut feeling is they don't need more. I think it's just really understanding, like to Josh's point, like what they're using a lot of right now.
Yeah.
Right now, if we needed everything that's there, they need about 19,000 square feet of space. And right now they currently have, I can get the exact numbers, but it's around 16,000 square feet for just the shop space that they have. If that makes sense.
And we want to make sure that we would never, but we're not taking equipment away from capital because Helena High doesn't have it to make it equal. Like that's not gonna happen. That makes sense.
Yeah.
There may have, 21 chop saws, we may not use them all, but we're not gonna take the toys away and say, because Helena High doesn't have it, we're not gonna let you have it. It's already in production, so there's gonna be some inconsistencies just because of the equipment that we already own in the district. Like Josh is doing a really great job of trying of making sure that things are equitable on both sides of town. But we're dealing with some inherent already inequities because of where machines that have been placed and bought for various reasons.
I think a really exciting part of this space, and similar to what's going to happen in Robert's space or the district kitchen, is like that. Services, electricity for the future, or plugins. Because right now, every time they want to add in a new piece of equipment or change programming or update, there's like not an infrastructure that's set for services to hook up a machine. So then these facilities will be way more electrified or air or water, the things they need will be more readily accessible, where it's always a delay in use for things. So we're gonna build it with that in mind, that they can be adaptable down the line.
Exactly.
And that'll be really good. Same with like when we get to district kitchen.
So just another little, sorry, Josh.
No, it's good.
Another little example is like one of the shops has no dust collection at all. One of the wood shops, right? So they have 7 portable dust collectors that they have to move around to the equipment. And those portable dust collectors aren't wanted. They may keep some of them for potential use in the future, but the reality is if that piece of equipment is there and fixed, it's going to be hooked into that actual dust collection system that we will be designing into this new CTE. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's some of that equipment we know they don't need. So at least we don't need a space dedicated on the floor for it. That's not to say that they will, to your point, Rex, get rid of it. It's just, we don't need dedicated space for that. Okay, so the program, again, over Christmas, and I again have all these Excel spreadsheets. These are big spreadsheets if you guys want to get into them. But we met with Josh and Brett, and we were able to really kind of understand all the spaces that are necessary for the school to work. And I think the great thing to say is they have all the space that they need from an educational standpoint right now. So now it's moving things around so that it meets this new quality and priorities of what's going to make the space work well for the students, for the breakout spaces, for the, you know, because right now, if they're not in a class, they basically have to go to their car essentially, or the library, right? So we want to create those spaces where they're at home and they can study and they can do the things that high schoolers need. It's gonna be awesome. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question. How are you planning for flexibility for future use? Like with the CTE spaces, I know we have certain equipment right now that might look really different in 20 years.
Yep. Yeah, and that's part of what we'll be kind of vetting tomorrow with the shop teachers is trying to kind of envision what might be necessary. That'll all get vetted with the district, of course, and we'll right size the building so that there is that flexibility. At least from a area standpoint, but also from a utility standpoint and making sure we try to think ahead. We try to do that all the time.
I guess.
Some of the modern CTE spaces, when we gotta see them, compared to what we have, they like have pre-built electrical drops in them. Or they have, like the utilities that are more accessible. They're part of the structure. However that's done, it's so different and new than what we have, and then they can do so many different things with just the way a CTE classroom is designed.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna jump off. So on the SWOT analysis, we put that together, based on what came as feedback on the surveys and also out of the design advisory group or DAG, as Jacob had talked about it. I won't read through these in the essence of time, but just the strengths, what the respondents love is the rich academic and extracurricular variety, the positive school culture, and student success and preparation. So we talked a lot about that in the DAG meetings of just let's capitalize on that and keep moving forward. We get into the weaknesses next. A lot of that. So as we go through the school has wonderful bones. And so we're capitalizing on the bones, again, just for that opportunity. But then looking at, we know the traffic is a concern, especially as about that 3 o'clock time when school lets out and there it gets pretty busy. Inadequate common student spaces, as we just found out, we really couldn't find one. And so we want to create that opportunity for the students in there to do that. The next we'll go to our threats, because we like to end on opportunities, even though it's a SWOT. We'll do it a little different, but some of the threats, this is a renovation project. And so it's going to be at times stressful as a project, but we're doing what we can. We're figuring out phasing. We're with our language partners to just figure out how we're going to make this for the least amount of stress on the students and faculty and staff that we can. And another one too is just community perception and trust. That was an interesting comment on the survey. And so just making sure that we're ahead of that entire process. And then as we look at the very end, the opportunities, just the modernization and sustainability, that was a big key factor in a lot of the comments that came back. And enhanced staff and student well-being. And of course, as part of this, just the improved facility too. So just wonderful opportunities. So jump into that, we picked a few of the community survey results. There were quite a few questions. To the left in the red is the ones that go, are kind of either most or very dissatisfied. So cafeteria and dining is the one that sticks out in question 5 there. And then to the far right, everybody loves the library. It's in the south facing, it's got windows everywhere. We're all daylight junkies, we love daylight, and it just helps and promotes learning. So why not capitalize on that too? But when you look at, let's jump back, sorry, Jacob, I jumped over the camera. What excites the most? High quality learning environments are what excites everybody the most. And of course, the safety and security was next. So a very good cross section there as well. Now, sorry to get me jump to this. And how important are the features of modern learning and for environments and CHS? And so again, as you can see, left being very dissatisfied, to the right being somewhat and very satisfied. And so it's kind of the two that head out or access to natural land and views. Again, that's why the library did so well in that space. And then the opportunity to support student collaboration and teamwork. It's another one that was there. And I think this is the last one we have up here. Wellness, specialized education and supporting that. And so the dedicated student study spaces. So finding those different pockets, those chance meetings, those opportunities for students to get together and collaborate.
We're not gonna spend much time. We've shown you all these, and again, we love what we do, and eventually you won't see all this, but those things were really important because they kind of are the barometers that we weigh these designs against. But we did a day in a life. It's where we gotta get together with the students and say, let's pretend that you're a different student or a different teacher. What are the pinch points and what works really well? So these are the high points and the pain points, we like to call them. Again, traffic, parking, a lot of the things you saw and kind of the threats and the, the weaknesses are again, in these. And we're gonna let Doug kind of explain these different options. And, so now this is what you came to see, right? So.
All right.
Yeah, so 4 concepts, and we'll go through these in a little more detail than we have previously, just so that I don't think all of you have seen all of these at this point. And so this first concept A is northbound, and northbound really builds on the work that was done by the district and Rex and team through the master planning process and through the successful bond campaign. And so this really builds on that option and tries to further detail that. And so when you see the light tan, and I'm not sure what it is on your screen, but on my screen it's light tan. That is the existing building that we're keeping. The darker brown color that you see is the new construction work that would go on site. One of the primary things that were identified in the master plan was, all right, Jacob and Scott just talked about, how do we improve circulation on the site? And then so in this particular option, it considers flipping the primary athletic field and track location down to the parking lot location, where it is right now in the southwest. And then you see a new parking lot and new circulation on the north side. And we'll talk a little bit about the comments that were made by the DAG through this process. But so you have primary entry of the building on the north, primary drop off of students off of Custer Street on the north. And then we created a little bit of a separate loop to the side that separates the bus drop off from the visitor drop off. The other thing that this does is reorganizes the site a little bit around the athletic addition on the southwest, and you see a little bit of staff parking. We also leave the tennis courts in their current location, and the access point moves a little bit further north on Valley Street in order to help with that circulation. CTE is on the west side of the building with good south face orientation. We end up with a really nice courtyard on the south side of the building off of the new heart of the school, north of the 96th edition and the science wing. There were some comments that were made when we went through the DAG that buses maybe not in the best location. One of the refinements that we'll look at next week is actually refining this. We talked about buses primarily staying along Brady Street along the south side of the site was one of the comments that was made as part of that. What you see on the right, and Scott hopefully will help a little bit on this, is we had some pros and cons that we put up there just based on our initial thoughts, and then the design advisory group actually came back and made additional comments. So we'll circle back to that at some point, but this is just basic site layout that we're trying to solve as part of this northbound option. So go to the next plan if you would. So this is 3 levels. So on the lower left of the slide is the lower level of the existing building, and then the main level is in the middle, and then the upper level is on the right. And so what you see in this particular option, and we intentionally try to come up with different solutions and look at things different ways, because as Rex and Jacob both said, that ultimately none of these will be the solution. It'll be a combination of the best parts of each of these. So if we start with the lower left, as Jacob talked about, the colors. So the media center library is red, and in this particular option, it switches locations and moves to the basement where the cafeteria is, with some additional daylighting and opening up. But the other thing that you see in this lower level on the left is that light green color that may be yellowish on your screen is some of those CTE classrooms that are moving into the building out of the existing middle of the building. So things like the drafting class, the business class, if we were going to do culinary arts, if we were going to do robotics, as Jacob mentioned, those sort of spaces could move into that lower level. If you look at the upper level, what we're doing in this option is actually cutting a hole in the floor of that portion of the building so that we can add some additional exterior windows and drive daylight into that lower space. So photography doesn't necessarily, and digital media doesn't necessarily need as much direct daylight as a regular classroom. We'd still like some daylight in there. We'd like to connect those two floors as we're exploring this. The other thing that you'll see on this floor is you'll start to see the color that wasn't in the existing plane, that cyan color next to the media center. We're starting to see some of those breakout spaces start to be added to the building. If we go to the main level of the building, the existing library space in this particular option gets renovated for new art classrooms. And so we would move the art classrooms from the north end of the building to the south end of the building. Lots of daylight, good orientation. We can make a connection between digital arts and with fine arts on this level. We can open that floor up. The reason that we're relocating that location is on the north end of the building where the existing art wing is, and some of those business classes is where that CTE portion of the building. So the high bay spaces that Jacob talked about, we're really relocating to that end of the building, and good orientation, additional space, connecting it better to the educational environment, improving safety and security by making that connection. Next to that, to the right, you'll see the blue admin area that's adjacent to the entry. Best practices are as admin is directly adjacent to the primary entry point of the building. And so you'll see that for passive supervision and also that secure vestibule that we'd be creating in that option. Just to the right of that, you see the purple kitchen. We need a kitchen for the heart of the school. And you can see now the heart of the school, that connector space, that common space being driven to connect both the academic wing and the performing arts and the athletic portion of the building. You see a couple X's on that plan in the middle. Those are open to below, and so we're going to drive daylight down because this is a two-story volume in the middle. We're going to drive daylight down into that lower level in the media center by connecting those spaces. These spaces are much more flexible and dynamic, and so we want those spaces to be connected in multiple spaces for students to be able to interact and do different activities. What you see on the right is on that first level, on the south end of the plan, south of the existing gymnasium, as you see the new auxiliary gym being added to the building. And then you see renovation of the central kitchen space to support new locker rooms. So move the girls' locker room out of the basement, improve ADA accessibility, and move that to the right of the existing locker room for boys. We would renovate those spaces, both of those spaces, those health classrooms and the locker rooms, in order to get all the locker rooms on one level. On the clear on the northeast corner of it, you see an addition. So we're a little bit short as we went through the program with both Josh and Brett right before Christmas. We identified a couple of things. Orchestra's right now in the basement of the lower level of the existing high school. And so we're moving that fine arts program up adjacent to orchestra and choir, and then providing stagecraft and some of those other things to support the performing arts in that corner of the building. So there's another great opportunity to sort of consolidate all of that program into one location in the building. On the second level, you don't see a lot of changes. What's in this bond scope and as part of this is improving educational environments. So whether that's the mechanical system, so heating and cooling, the lighting, the technology in those spaces, and the finishes. And so in the upper level, you see a little bit of an intervention for small group areas, but then you primarily see just a refresh of those educational environments on that second level. And that's how this plan sort of starts to come together as one of the concepts that we're developing. I'm going to pause there and see if there's any questions before we move on to the second option. The other thing I would point out is Jacob said that you can see the department legend in the right. As you move through this, what we're really trying to do in these four concepts is basically the program is satisfied in all of these. So the appropriate number of classrooms, the appropriate amount of science rooms, the right amount of counseling space, the right amount of special ed space is present in all of these. So we're not compromising any of that in these options. It's really what we're trying to get with the DAG, the Design Advisory Group, and even your input is what are the big moves that are really driving the decisions and what things are really the most important. The details we'll sort out once we have a direction on the concept, and then we'll start to dig into those things and solve them. So any questions about northbound before we move on?
There's one here, Doug, and I might add that I believe, I haven't looked at them, in front of you, John, are those, paper copies of the option that we see on the screen? Okay, so you can get a move around and look at the papers as well. Question, okay,
Thanks. I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. So on this northbound option, the new front door will be on the north side at that diagonal. The old front door, if I understand it correctly, is kind of that little like inlet at the bottom, right?
Because
Front door-ish.
Yeah, so we're gonna be rebuilding all of it in this option. So these kind of red dotted lines that you can kind of see in here,
That's the old,
that's the old that we're planning to not keep essentially.
that makes sense. This little grotto on the south side, that's fascinating. Did you have any idea what that might, just kind of, that just feel like an outdoor gathering space? I mean, it's surrounded almost on three sides.
Yep, it's a courtyard, so it's
Courtyard?
open to the
Okay.
sky.
Nice.
this is open.
Yep. And some of it, right, is this building is big already, and
Yeah.
so whatever we infill or cover, it just makes, we're trying to temper that. So you see a couple options where we create these courtyards, one for students to use. And then also just because we can't cover the whole piece, because it's just too much space to add to the program.
It's chunky.
Brett, will you talk just a little bit about what your students do right now on the south side of the building and picnic tables and the value of a space like this?
Yeah, I think it's really, weather dependent, but certainly in the fall, in the spring, in our current courtyard, which just would be the same. There are those picnic tables kind of right in front of the main office,
Yeah.
and those are full. So certainly when the weather is nice, students do enjoy getting outside, and I'm not talking about the ones that are, trying to get to their vehicle to drive somewhere for lunch, or those that maybe sit in their vehicle, but really, those that do enjoy getting outside and sitting at those tables. And, it's one of those things where with maybe a new or expanded commons area, kind of replacing our current cafeteria, maybe more students would just eat in those spots anyways, or those kind of breakout study spaces that have been discussed earlier. So, so it's hard to say that, when you build something, will there be as much? I would imagine they do like to get outside when the weather's nice. And so it just really replicating what's already out there right now.
I think another piece of capital that we're all recognizing that lower level is really dark. It's really dungy, it's basement feel. And so I really like Slate RTI's idea of, punching holes through the floor and getting a lot of that light deflect down and make that much more vertically volume per se and open feeling. So there's a lot of, and I think in all the concepts, it talks a lot about punching holes through that floor center to get light back down in the basement to make it feel like it's not so much dark and dingy. Yep. And useful.
Thank you. And I like this, but as we're talking about equality between schools, I'm heartened to hear that, both schools currently have a very car-forward approach to student socializing.
Yeah, right.
Questions? Yeah.
I'm just curious and interested. It builds on both of the comments here. So I'm just curious to hear more about library in the basement, and I am seeing the punch through the floor, but
Let's
that's,
keep moving.
okay.
Yeah, because that is
Okay.
one area that
And that had a bunch
I'm
of
not real,
cons. Yeah, and that was the area that had the most cons, right? Like, we don't want the library in the basement. I think this is the only one that shows that.
Oh, okay.
yes.
All
Yeah,
right.
there's
Well,
correct.
we'll
There's
keep
more.
all right.
Yeah, let's go to the next scheme and we'll keep it. Oh, so let's watch the video quick. So one of the things that I think it helps everyone understand is where the additions are occurring on the building is to look at this. So you see the brown is the existing building, existing brick, and then that program space, the Ox Gym on the south, the new connector for circulation, the existing weight room and central kitchen. You see we'll pull the lean-tos off, but then you see the fine arts addition, the kitchen addition, the admin in blue, and the CT and that white element is really that connector hub of the school. Starts to give you a sense of how does this sit on the site? What's the visual impact when you start to see the addition on the building? And so
This is much
good
more
to
smooth
see.
on. So,
It's
Let's
still
go to the
pretty-
next one. So then the next one is called Valley Entry, and it's really Valley Entry because it's a south entry off of Valley and reconfiguring the south part of the site. So in this particular option, we leave the field and the track in their current location with some upgrades. We improve the student parking lot, leave that. The primary drop-off loop, which there's a lot of, as we all know, freshmen, sophomores, and people that can't drive that are dropped off in the morning that don't ride the bus, and that would be right adjacent to the south entry of the building and that reconfiguration. In this version, we show the 96 building where the library and the science rooms are. We show that portion of the building removed. And there's been a lot of discussion in our design advisory groups about that. But we wanted to look at this option because it does improve site circulation tremendously. It also helps with just the visual appeal of the building, and it cleans up those things. We've got to balance the program with that. CTE pretty much stays in the same location. We feel like we looked at a lot of different options. It still feels like the best way to connect to the existing building. We're going to show you a different version here in a minute. This one, we show the new gym addition a little bit further to the southeast. We clean up some site where we remove the CTE building on the north side of the building. We end up with more staff parking and more access to the building from the north for staff. Parents are to the lower right. And then we talked a little bit about drop off. So let's go to the next plan because we'll show you the plan. And so in this particular.
One question, Doug.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is on concept A. So you're doing the kitchen by the entry. Where are kids eating?
They would eat in that part of the school or that common space.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, good question.
So that's gonna be like open with all kinds of tables, and then in the warm weather, you have the option to go.
And that's
Yep.
pretty much the case for all of these, just so you know, like we
Okay.
didn't say, here's the cafeteria and it's only used for cafeteria. It really becomes,
Something that Slate came up with that, I don't think we thought about in the pre-bond workers. How do you incorporate, we wanted a new cafeteria and we wanted a new commons. Well, they've come up with a plan now that really incorporates the downstairs as being a low-level cafeteria. Like how's that become useful? You knock the ceiling out or you knock the floor out, you make it all one big area that's open everywhere. And so you really connected the two dots into a useful space. That makes a lot of sense. You'll see that same concept through A, B, C, and D.
I really like that because as a former parent, having to go into individual classrooms really splits up the community. It really silos kids into these little groups. And so being able to do that, I think will help so much with the connection.
And at the same token, like building a whole big cafeteria that gets used once a day, but realistically doesn't take place. I mean, they're not gonna eat in the cafeteria. So just like having a place where they have some agency to figure out where they want to
Yep.
fit. I like it.
it also helps a lot with like community functions after hours.
Yeah.
You know,
You can just visualize that space, the floors, part of that floor, cap is gone. There's a lot of vertical space in, but it's also where the gym flows out into, it's where the performance flows out to. Now it's your cafeteria area, it can probably be where kids feel a sense of belonging, where you got tables that are different height, you got lighting that's different light or height and color. It just becomes this big communal space.
Yep. Hey Doug,
Lower level here, you'll see something very similar. You'll see that we're renovating the existing art building on the north for new classroom spaces on the north, where we can get science or English or something in that area. And we relocate the boiler room and all of these options underneath the existing academic wing. In the connector here, instead of the library or the media center being on the lower level, we're actually open to below in a fairly large portion of this. And we're actually tucking CTE programs in here. So whether it's photography, business, drafting, robotics, culinary arts, we're tacking those green spaces down below in this 2-story volume or 3-story volume. And so that those CT spaces are not kind of at the edge of the campus anymore. They're sort of centrally located. So they're more on display. We get more interaction with students and they're connected vertically to the heart of the school, which is a little different configuration than the last option, but that heart of the school commons cafeteria area is in the middle of the building in this location. In this option, CTE is very similar, a little different configuration. We're reusing the existing art building for CTE classrooms and to support that. CT, but the high bay spaces are what you're seeing to the west of that. In the heart of the school, you see on the south, the new main entry next to the existing academic wing. The blue area is the admin area for great passive supervision for the entry of the building. And then the kitchen is tucked in right next to that. The Ox Gym is on the south side of the building in the corner. There we have a connector hallway. And then again, we move up and we renovate the existing classrooms for the girls' locker room. And then we renovate the existing central kitchen to be the support space for moving orchestra up and having support space for choir and band at this point. So a little different configuration. On the second level of this building, you'll see that this particular version, we have a second level. And so instead of the media center being in the basement like it was in option A, in option B, it's actually on the second level above the commons. And then we are putting the science classrooms the second level above the art room and the kitchen in this situation. And so science all still stays on the south side of the building, but they're connected. You see some of the light blue areas that are being generated on the second floor. And this one relies heavily on the heart on the main level for that. And then we have some opportunities on the lower level to add some of that light blue also. But we're really relying on that commons area again here in this option. And so just a different configuration. There are pros and cons to this one, just like there was the last one. But it just shows a different way to solve that issue at this point. Any questions about B before I move on to C? Because I've got to get to D. I've got about 10 minutes here, so I've got to keep moving here. But comments.
I did have a question. So Brett, I know one of the issues with the current entry being where it is that kids use the backside by the library. And so and then they leave the door open for their friends. So how is that fixing that issue?
Yeah, so on this one, looks like the office would be right near that, the entrance, really. I think getting away, because like right now, we refer to that entrance by the main foyer as kind of being the main entrance, yet, as we know, where student parking is. So this really takes the students from the student parking lot. You can see it goes right to the very front, the drop off in front. So it really does make the main entrance, and with the office being right there.
So you feel good about that?
Yes, much better than of course now, where, you know, we'll take turns kind of supervising that library foyer, because that's where students are coming in from the student parking lot.
And there's pros and cons, but both A and B have a single entry,
Yes.
but you'll see that in C and, well, I guess also in C, but D, you end up having to kind of activate the space in two different spots, which is, you know, it's doable, but it is.
Yeah, the best practices would be, just like you described, to have those students all entering in that main entry. And then, you know, with the visitor parking right near the front door, we have one controlled entry. For staff parking on the north side of the building, they would have key card access to get into the building. If they were in the student lot, they may have the same access to get into the CTE building, but really this option really consolidates the entry to one location and opens up the whole south side of the campus. So any other questions? We'll do the video real quick here. So this is what you really.
Can I back up just one part? There's a lot of pieces we like about this. But early, the survey would say that they really like the library space, kind of a cool spot. It's 1996, it's the newest edition. In this model, it gets torn down. It is removed. Right.
Yeah,
That right there, that extension.
And the reason, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Oxygen, you know, moving, it just. Just one of those.
Kind of for that main entrance is really, it's moving, I think, more for a focal point right at that.
Yeah, there's a couple things. It's important to also note that, right, the building itself is already big enough as it is, right? So by removing that, it's not like we're, you know, right now that space has a basement, it has the media center, and it has five science rooms essentially in it. So it's not a heavily utilized like educational space, but it's 30,000 square feet. And so this one was another reason we did this is if we're at 250,000 square feet already and we're adding 55,000 square feet, we're now absolutely ginormous compared to what's necessary, right? So that's, you know, we looked at a lot of these, you'll see all of these have a little bit of getting demolished and a little bit of getting new, and I do need to point out that that centerpiece is always getting demolished, so it's not like you have a 300,000 square foot building anywhere, you know, that's about 20,000 square feet that's getting removed and everyone rebuilt, essentially.
I'll just say that I like the idea. I like some of the pieces. I just not sure if I'm ready to endorse, you know, nearly $1 million in demolition just to remove a public building. So.
And I think that's a good point, Rex, and that's one of the things that we want to explore with the contractor and like understand that value, right? Because it doesn't cost near as much to tear it down as build it back. But you're right, like there's some value in that square footage. And so we'll continue to do that. I think if you go to the next slide of the video, I think the thing that starts to become apparent is how you get a whole new front facade to the building, and you really change the view and the visuals and the connection to that main entry by doing the primary solution on the south side of the building versus the north. Gives you a sense of that. As we move around to the north side of the building, some of those things get cleaned up. We address that. Rex has pointed out that we need to do something visually to improve the back side of the building also. This CTE addition will be a really nice addition to the building. And I think in all of these options, you see it in the same location, and it has that same impact on the back of the building as we clean things up. So let's go to C, and I'll go ahead.
Oh, Doug, just an earlier comment. That's a really important point. That visualization is the real reason why I want that old CTE building gone.
And I can just tell you, 30 years ago in the 90s, when that addition was built onto the library, it was a quick fix because the library was off the foyer. It was the priest quarters. It was converted, and it just soon made the library, which wasn't appropriate. And so the way the district fixed that is let's build the library and put the science classrooms on top. It's gonna do that. But I can tell you, and Brett can tell you too, the library was never, it was a place for students to go, but students didn't go. So it was a huge space that oftentimes was not used for what needs to be. I love that you're bringing it up on the second level and it becomes part of the academic program. Because it was always looked separate. So that's how it felt.
You know, Keith and trustees, and how does that feel? How does that resonate with you that, what if that building's not there? The public perception of tearing down, because we talked about how good bones this building was and the reason why we're not rebuilding the whole thing. How does it feel to, I don't want to answer that today.
No.
But just think about what that looks like from a political sense of tearing down the newest space. Because I think it has a lot of merit. If we could get it gone, it'd be great. But I'm also tight on this budget and I don't want to dump money in a pit.
No, I think there's options C and D that do different with that space.
I think D is definitely, you'll see a difference with D, I think, but yeah.
So, sorry, we're running short on time.
Yep.
Yeah, so let's do courtyard connector quickly because the design advisory group did not like this one as much.
Second. Yeah, sorry. Hold on a second.
I haven't even thought about it for one whole minute, but just a total gut check. Having been through COVID and budget cuts and closing an elementary school, knocking down a library that nobody uses as part of a huge renovation project doesn't hurt me politically at all. There is no political future to run a school board. It doesn't even matter.
Now, if it was the gym, I think you're gonna, honestly, over on that side of town, that's gonna be more of an issue than the library. I'd be willing to bet that if you asked the majority of the parents at Capitol High over a period of time, where's the library? Some might say, oh, I think it's where the priest quarters were. I mean, I just think that that's a sense of that building it was just added. It wasn't, I shouldn't use the word just, but it was added on simply because there was space. We needed a library and we needed science room. So boom, there it is.
It's the reason we're having these meetings.
Yeah.
Because I'm much more apprehensive of tearing down, putting money into that than leaving it the way it is. So anyway.
And the other option is to do
I
something.
think you need to, like, one campus is getting a completely new school, right? One campus is renovating. And a lot of, feelings initially, well, is capital gonna be left behind? Do you change how they approach capital when they show up and it looks like a new building? I think they feel better about them.
Which I am most concerned about is that the reason why I like that A concept, north facing entry, south facing change up, is that it has an entry that's really remarkable. I want that to look beautiful. And then some of these, when you're coming in on the corner from the west side, your new entry is a corner of the building, which the old library. I have a concern with that. And so I think we've got, maybe we're a little further down the road in B than we thought we were 20 minutes ago.
Well, I think, I mean, sorry to interrupt, but there's competing priorities in my mind
Yeah.
on
Yep.
CTE.
Yep.
The entry to the school, the commons,
Yep.
and getting into all those classrooms and updating them.
Yep.
So then the like concerns for staff is don't just do little in the classroom, do a lot in my classroom. So then I want like to be able to deliver all of those, or do we gotta pick pieces of those? So I think that's why we need options.
Yeah.
And then we'll have pricing on what can we actually do in classrooms.
All right, Doug, you're on C.
So C is the crazy Ivan, as Rex said, and really what C is trying to do is say, we're going to try to minimize the impact of the existing building while we're doing construction. So you see the primary addition is in the existing parking lot to the west of the building, and the new entry moves, Jacob can point to the red triangle, the new entry moves further to the west of the building. So what it allows us to do is construct this entire portion of the building, not affect the existing building. After that portion is done, then we go back and we tear down the center core of the building. We end up with two courtyards, a north courtyard and a south, and we minimize that connector. And so that's why it's called courtyard connector, is because we're trying to minimize the construction between the two buildings, and we're really trying to do that further to the west. You can see in this option, it reconfigures the site plan a little bit, but primarily it doesn't do much. So in this option, the lower level, we end up with CTE kind of in the middle of the building and some flex breakout space. The lower level, the 96 building, kind of becomes storage because most of the classrooms are going to move upstairs. We're trying to get things out of the basement. We're doing some renovation on the north end of the art building for some classroom spaces. Those have about half those classrooms already have daylight because of its slope of the site. You can see on the main level, the new entry of the building, the admin adjacent to the admin, the CTE, and then we have the heart of the school that's connecting. This one is a long horizontal. The primary feedback from the DAG was like, hey, this doesn't feel as much like a heart of a school. It feels like a really long, spread out heart of the school. Don't like that as much. They didn't prioritize this. In this particular option, we add science rooms to in the library area because we're pulling them out of the addition because we're on the second level of the T is what we call the end of that academic wing, is where we're putting the library and the media center library in the middle of the building. In this particular option, we added the gym, the Oxygen to the north to help with the site, improve with the site. We renovate the existing central kitchen area to locker rooms like we were doing the other options. The feedback on this one was like, hey, we like the less disruption, but we don't like the distributed heart of the school. We like the media center on the second level. That's cool. We don't really like the Ox Gym on the north side of the building because it's sort of interfering a little bit with the fine arts. So we like that on the south, and then you can see the music edition. And so of the four options, as Rex said, this was the least. The other thing I would tell you visually, when you look at this, you see a lot of the old building driving down Valley and around Brady, and you really don't see the new entry until you move further around the site to the west. That was not as appealing to the DAG, probably not as appealing to this group based on what you've said today also. But it gives you a sense. You do get some new addition on the north side of the building that improves the visuals, like Rex said, removing the tech building, but probably not quite as compelling to the group. But I'll pause there and see if there's any additional comments. I know how Rex and Josh and Brett feel about this one, so.
Well, I mean, one of the things I'm thinking about with each of these is just outside opportunity, like you talked about, the kids like to go out when the weather is nice, and of course, we live in Montana, who knows what that will look like. But that last one, it looked like there was a lot of courtyard space with open light, not hidden behind 2-story. So.
Yep.
Just a comment. I'm interested in how much outdoor space we give students to go have their meals and.
And again, there's pros and cons. Things is by infilling that whole center kind of core, a lot of those other, you're basically getting borrowed light instead of natural light from the outside. This one really does kind of all those classrooms that are across that existing classroom wing, you're kind of keeping it open.
Yeah.
But again,
We live in
it
one-
changes
Yeah.
things a lot.
Yeah.
So in option D is a little bit of a hybrid as we do this. So this is called Campus Hub. And so you can see the primary thing on the site that we really do here is relocate the tennis courts. So one of the things that we've identified as a group, when those tennis courts were put in, not maybe in the best location from a visual site perspective. And so by relocating those, we get to move the entry further north, improve that access to that north parking lot, and then redefine that staff parking lot to the north, like we had in several other options where access for that would be to the north, kitchen access would be on the north. CTE, just a little different configuration. This one turns a little bit further to the south, reaches that to that parking lot. We still have loading outdoor space for students in that. We keep the 96 version. In this particular option, what happens is the entry moves to the west side of the existing building. So Jacob can point to where the entry is in that connector. It's already a student entry right now from the parking lot, but the primary entry of the building would move to that location in this particular option. Again, buses we have in the front of the building, and we had student drop-off is not sketched in this option, but student drop-off was going to be in the student parking lot or along Brady Street. That was some of the comments. That's one of the SWAT things, is improve site circulation and safety. Some of the data that we presented the district in the past, where students are most vulnerable during the course of the day is vehicular, whether it's coming to and from school with their parents in a car, or it's part of drop off and pickup is where the most chaos occurs and where there's most opportunity for people to get hurt. And so we're going to clean up that. So let's go to the floor plan, because this is very similar in some of the ways. The lower level of the building on the lower left, again, we punch the hole in the floor of the library. We wrap admin around that, so it's near the entry of the building that's now on the southwest side of the site. We have counseling and such that are going into that library space. On the lower level of that 96 edition, we end up with classroom spaces, CTE spaces in that space. We're borrowing daylight into that in that area. On the north end, much like we did on some of the other options where the existing art wing is, we're renovating that area for classrooms, opening that up. In this particular option, we're reusing the lower level where the cafeteria is like we did in some of the other options, and we're putting CTE spaces down in that building, and then using that as a connector. The old girls' locker room in all of these options can become storage for athletics or for the building in this option. CTE is just a little different configuration where we're using the existing building and then doing the addition for high bay on that portion of the building. The heart of the school here is changing forms a little bit, as you see. There's courtyard opportunities both on the north, the south, a little bit smaller. And you can see the X's again on that floor plan on the main level where we're trying to borrow light down in the lower level, add some of those flexible spaces for students. This option is very much like the first option that we looked at, where kitchen is on the north. We're doing a music addition to the building to support fine arts. In this particular version, we do the Ox Gym to the east, just to look at that as an option where we tear down the lean-tos adjacent, the coolers adjacent to central kitchen, do it there. We renovate again for restrooms, for locker rooms on the main level of that. And then the second level of this, where we do the connector in this option, a little different configuration than option B, in that we put the media center on the upper level above the heart of the school. It's open to below, so we share 2-story volume above. We connect it to the educational environment like you talked about. And in this particular option, we move, because we have CTE on the main level of the art building to support that, we actually move art to the second level, good north light, good daylight on that end. And so this is option D. And so let's go to the video real quickly and then I'll pause. So option D, what you see, entry of the building on the west side of the building in this configuration, bus loop drop off, adjacent to the 96 building in the south building, plaza, heart of the school. You can see those white volumes in the media center above, Ox Gym on the east side of the building. And then you see again, the fine arts addition and the kitchen addition on the north side of the building. So as Rex said, we're really trying to dress the building up on the north side, make sure that we improve the visuals around the building in this option. We've got what, about 5 minutes, Rex?
Yeah, a little longer. We can transition and, you know, SMA's not gonna be here till 11:30, so we can borrow a little time. There's a lot of like on all of these, but, you know, I think as a team, we're gravitating towards D right now. It's, there's a lot of pieces that, and if we had more money, I'd like A. But that's not gonna happen. It's just,
Is A more expensive? Because I.
oh, gosh.
That's the largest.
But A was that parking lot on the, that's like where your eye would go off.
5 million, we're thinking it'd be a $5 million building.
Just to flip.
Swap the
flip
parking lot
the
views.
There's also like a 7-foot drop in grade right there, so not that we can't overcome that, but there's things.
Yeah, we'd have to put some sort of
Ramp system or something.
ramp, and then it's not, that you can't have entries on the north side, but that's where your ice collects, and we'd run some sort of hydrant water system out on the apron to melt snow. I mean, it's of all of these, our construction manager really likes D.
Yeah.
Okay. How expensive is B?
How
How
what?
expensive is B, the crazy one?
Yeah, the B.
C?
B,
B.
where you
That was
demolish
too
the
crazy. So literally, I said it before, we like all of it. I think the team right now likes B and D. That's kind of where we've been going, is talking a lot of B,
That's
D.
central.
I
Yeah,
mean, I wouldn't be afraid of demolishing the library based on what I've heard from the community. They're in the mood for a big change.
Yep, same.
And
That's my
I
gut
think the key
reaction.
put brought up was that there was a temporary fix to get it. I was like, oh my God. I could put it aside of it, but then I also understand that it's 3 stories. You're gonna get an excavator in there for over a month and a half. Tell me if I'm wrong, John. And then we're gonna dig out 3 stories of library, in which is still pretty good space. It's lit. It's a nice place. It's a great place for admin.
Best science rooms that
facing.
Capitol has right now.
And then the other part of that is that if you tear it down, science is above it.
Yeah.
Other than CTE, I don't know if there's a classroom that's more expensive to rebuild than science.
Yeah, that's true.
Gotcha.
I understand. I do
Right.
think it's important though, and you said that the difference with B and D is D, if you're driving around on Brady, it still looks like old Capitol High.
Yep.
It looks like Helena Central with the columns and how you don't see the newness until you get to the north side. And who's gonna go on the north side
Right.
but staff parking or somebody that's maybe looking from Custer saying, oh, it does look new. And I think that's really important is that the community feels like we got 2 new high schools and visually they look new. That's what I love about B is
I
the sense.
You know, for years, I used to run that loop and look up over the jump, or the pull-up pits,
Right.
it's the old field, the track and field garbage and litters, Custer,
Yeah.
into the view of a backside of a CT building that's worn out.
Yeah.
That view from Custer in.
Yeah.
It's gotta change. I don't care what you do, I can make it E, but I don't think it's gotta change. And then if we're gonna stick the front side of that or the south side, I also think that the north view from Custer has got that amount of traffic on it. I want people to look left and right over the shoulder to say, that's a new building.
Yep, I agree.
And then I guess the piece, no, we'll shut up, but I really want like hallways that are narrow and corridors to have breakout spaces so students feel like when they're experiencing education, that they have a new feel inside.
yeah.
So then those are major hallway changes,
Mhm.
interior, but that's where kids are most gonna be after we get them in school. And so I really want educational outcomes to be part of that design. Where classrooms coming offline because there's a wider hallway. or that kind of thing. And I know all of our wishes cost money, so I'm gonna, mine is gonna be prioritize educational outcomes for learning in the building. Okay, all right, as I just gotta say.
Yeah. Good.
A lot, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
really cool things with all of them and a
Yeah,
lot of things
very
you're like,
exciting.
I don't like that as much.
That works. Yeah,
I cut you off. Was there anything
No, you're-
else that?
You're fine, Rex. I think I smile a little bit because this is the kind of debate that we want to occur. We don't want to show you options that none of them can't be successful. And so that's our goal, is to make sure that we have this sort of dialogue and that we sort of understand those values just like we're articulated, and that we blend those things together to do as much as we possibly can within the budget, right?
Hey, just, will you pause that video or that graphic right there? Put it back, go back to the left. If not, keep going.
Twirl it.
Right there.
You got it.
This is, so you're looking from Custer.
Yeah.
Declan's doing great, by the way. I woke him up. So, coming, look up Custer, you're looking to the south. Mount Helen, or Mount Helen in the foreground. This still could be, though it's not the front that I had visualized early in this process, that it's some grand entry there. This still can look, and that's new. This can look new,
Yep.
right? So we can make this look well. Want to keep spinning it? Let's go back to the last. Keep spinning. Oh, all right, we'll keep going.
Do you want to go the other direction?
Yeah, go and counterclockwise. Okay, keep moving, front entryway, stop. So this becomes the front entry, student parking, all moves in. This is the library signs. Is there, from an architectural standpoint, something that we can do grander in here? Like, can we, that's a bearing wall, of course, I don't want to tear it down and rebuild it, but I think that we're gonna have to do something different rather than looking at, remember these are really pretty. Every one of these windows got those little lips around them.
Yeah.
Ugh. Like that's 1970 all the way through. We've got to do something around, if that becomes an entrance, then it needs to be an entry.
Yeah, and yeah, this doesn't show this grand thing, but there are ways to
Okay.
like kind of, where that's cutting through, I mean, you can kind of cut it out and rebuild and make it grander, more. You know.
And this is an admin on the bottom, if that's perhaps, I would say that admin, Shane, our construction manager, or doesn't like a lot, or owner's rep, but this glass, where we have to out, that needs to be opened up. Hey, I'm putting my foot down.
Doing it. On the existing gym, Chalice of Salvation is engraved in 3 different places, and it's weird to remove that, but it's like, it is kind of weird that it's still on a public school, and I'm wondering if there's a plan to.
Where is it?
The Eucharistic Chalice of
Yeah.
Salvation is on that building in 3 different spots, and it's just kind of like, you know what?
Oh, yeah,
If you
yeah,
weren't
yeah.
Catholic, you wouldn't notice it, but I am Catholic, and I'm like,
That's.
There once was a lot of separation of church and state.
I'm like, it
Yeah,
just seems like it
we'll
brings
address.
millions of dollars, it just feels like it should be a secular space, and
And-
I'm Catholic.
And that was part of the new, so it's interesting you say that, because part of that 96, 97, whatever, it was not only that library wing, but then also that side of the gym, that kind of entry right there. And of course, that replaced, there was the cross.
Yeah.
There was a cross on that wall prior to that.
So you can pick your battles.
I mean, so.
Identify a cross, it has to be confirmed.
Put it on the new house. Make it say.
There you go.
Yeah. Cross town is-
It's like the Minecraft version though. I mean,
It really has to be like steeped in the tradition.
Alright, so, Doug, Riley, Jacob, Scott, Langless, did we give you enough confusion to move forward? Yeah.
I have one more quick question. What spaces do you have allotted for staff use, like for a staff lounge or?
That's a good question.
We have
Yeah,
a,
so that,
we have a we've reviewed the program for both Helena High School and what we have existing, and are going to provide basically a very similar, a square footage of space that was in the program for both Helena and for this. The final location of that is probably not completely shown at this point because we're not to that level of detail yet, but it'll be very similar in both of the schools.
And it'll be, what some of the comments was, I don't like to have to go so far to get my prints and do my things, right? So we will most likely centrally try to locate that in a way that like teachers don't have to go,
Way to the
10 minutes away to try to do that type of stuff as well too.
So on D, just to be clear, if the library's kept, and then will the science classrooms remain upstairs? Then is
Yes.
that the idea? Yeah.
Yep.
Would there be any work done to those?
Well, there's gonna be work done to every part of this because we know we gotta redo the mechanical systems and the
Right.
electrical systems and the data systems. And so, and, and probably some of the finishes will get upgraded in all of them, whether it's just flooring or paint. But yeah, there will be work done in every kind of space, just to the degree will be we're still working through that at this time.
Teachers don't get any workspace.
I've also had some new moms reach out to me, probably because of my new phase of life, to make sure there's a room when they have a baby. that they can come.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will build in a lactation room somewhere in the building to support new moms.
Okay, so we've got, about 10, 15 minutes, so let's wrap up with the presentation, but allow trustees to get up, see hard copies.
Yep.
And or restroom, and then grab lunch and transition into the next. Is there any parting words, anything else that, questions, comments?
No, this is just real fun.
Come on in.
This is the real fun part of the job where we get to test fit and try new things and.
You know what,
It's
is
great.
it possible, can I have those, renderings and then I can post them outside my office and people can look at them?
Yeah, these.
Yeah. They're all, okay.
Great idea.
Click those out.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So interesting. Yeah, really fun. Yeah, that's really-
Thanks, Doug.
Guys, thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Made interest on being
If your patience, Karen.
Yeah, you're good. All right, we're gonna call this meeting back to order.
Oh, we're coming back to me.
Was that easy?
It's been out of order.
It's so nice.
Hi, architecture and construction update.
All right, part two. I think we blended this, both of these sub meetings into one, right? So we don't have to open back.
Correct.
Okay. All right, 11:45, we'll get started. First of all, Robert, thanks for your team. Great food again. How dare you bring those cookies? Those are, we haven't seen those for a while, and I understand that they're expensive, but they are good. Top of the town. If you haven't had something to eat, there's still a lot of sandwiches, so anyone in the back that has not, please eat. Candace ordered plenty. And this is a working lunch meeting, right? So feel free to have a mouthful of sandwiches, you ask questions. We are now transitioning from really great discussion. Thank you all. I got pretty hung up on some of the concepts out of the capital side because I was afraid of tear down and kind of that loss of money and what the perception would be for the public. But Keith, your input was valuable. That thing was, thank you. Kind of like Tinker, Lincoln Law build anyway, just to get it to kind of get us out of an emergency. It sounded like. Thanks for that. Moving forward into what I thought Slate RTA has made great progress into where they're at today from, even several weeks ago. But remember now that I'm putting the pressure on our next team, A&E and SMA and Dick Anderson, but A&E and SMA have been in this now for quite a while. And so they're further ahead. Project, PAL, Comprehensive High School, Stadium, District Kitchen, right? So there's a lot going on in this. And so you're going to see this further developed, far more developed than what you saw with RTA and Slate, just because they've had more time into it. So, and doing great work, by the way. So other than maybe some introductions, let's do that real quick. Let's do a roundtable introduction for our new team. Gary, do you want to start? We'll go back to our right.
You bet. I'm Gary Myers, Director of Educational Technology for Helena Public Schools.
Brian Kessler, principal, Helena High School.
Greg Swell, superintendent.
Jennifer McKee, board member, and God Grant to Helena High Case. Well, one Helena High Case, one Helena High Case.
Shannon Armstrong, trustee.
Keith Meyer, trustee.
Kay Safdry, trustee.
Nicole Anderson, project manager for this project.
Linda Cletus, trustee and parent of Helena High Kiddo.
Josh McKay, assistant soup 612.
Rob Worthy, food service director.
Alec Nero, OCR of Fulton.
Matt Carey, principal at PAL.
Tim Meldrum, principal at SMA, A&E SMA.
Mark is also principal, with A&E and SMA Design.
And Ally Martin with A&E and Estimate Design.
And then in the back, we already got through Slate. Let's go, Caitlin.
State assessment and federal programming for the district.
Sam.
Sam Bowman, business manager. Candace Solo, executive assistant to superintendent Box.
Typical.
Dick Anderson Construction. Mike Dunlap, Dick Anderson Construction, field superintendent.
Excellent. All right, thanks for the introductions. By year 3, we'll have that down. So, Tim, do you want to, what I've asked, we set up this conversation in the last meeting, but what we've asked A&E SMA and the team to do with Dick Anderson's support is we have, again, these meetings Thursday. We run through these working concepts, like what works, what doesn't work, so that we can bring options to the board for decisions, right? I'm being really careful about saying that we are not making decisions in work session. We're having options that we bring to the board for decisions. And though that gets pretty convoluted at times, that's the purpose of our work session, so that we can get to the board. But we also said earlier, SMA, is that the trustees hear this, 3-4 iterations down the road. And then we get to present, but there's not a lot of question and answer going on there. We have a short period of time. So this is really a time to roll up our sleeves, allow a lot of good dialogue. And we found that with our last meeting, some really great conversations that helped me kind of get over some anxiety about a couple of options that I thought the public and the board would resonate a little harder on, but they didn't. So this is I look forward to this conversation. So we have, the floor is yours, and let us know where you're at.
Sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, we were pretty excited about kind of where things are headed.
but also really excited to get you at the table, not just sort of a one-way presentation, but to really have that kind of dialogue and interaction on what you're seeing and all the kind of pull the curtain and see what's behind some of the things that we're doing. So we'll go through an agenda here and talk about how our presentation and sort of discussion images are set up. But we're gonna probably do a little bit of a quick review of what you've seen in the board meetings, just to make sure that we're all kind of landed on where things are at, the orientation of what we're kind of focusing on with regard to other development. So we will kind of look at some of what we're using from an existing standpoint, and then we'll kind of look at the overall campus again and make sure everybody knows where everything's going. And then we'll start to kind of look at how the three-dimensional, both the blocking two-dimensional and the three-dimensional plan is kind of evolving, where the space arrangements are happening and the relationships between everything. And then something new that you haven't seen that we're excited just to get to this point is really kind of the design vignettes and some of the views, the experiential views of how the language of the architecture of the building is looking. So what are some of the materials? What are some of the relationships maybe starting to look like? That's a really fun time frame because it's no longer just colored boxes or white boxes or something like that. We are just developing a language, so you're just going to see it in like a key area, one kind of specific area that will then in the next couple of weeks wrap it around the building and really start to evolve. If something comes out of this meeting with regard to let's develop that one, then that's even better. But we'll kind of share with you what we've committed to the building committee, some of the teachers and Brian's staff that we worked with this week.
Is it worth quickly defining who the building committee is for the sake of, if people know that?
No, I think it'd be really good. I might have Ally do that just to.
Yeah, or maybe Brian.
Yeah.
So okay, push that one.
Yeah.
I know, all the way down there.
Our building committee is our SLT, our school leadership team. So every department has their department chair sits on that. And then the two other assistant principals sit in, and then Josh Todd will come in and sit on most meetings.
One of the funnest parts of it though is that Megan and Ryan Schulte are both on it. And there's a funny kind of dynamic between those two being a husband and wife.
Yeah.
And we get to learn a lot about what may happen at their dinner table.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of funny.
So there's an HHS building committee, sorry Rex, I just want to finish that, and then there's also a PAL building committee that we're managing through these early design phases as well. So Matt, would you speak to that?
Yeah, smaller staff, obviously, but more proportional. It's on the team. Ryan Cooney does some social studies things for us. He's been with PAL for, I want to say, about 10 years now. Heather Barton, who's new to us, special ed and PE, and the Computer Center science person. Brooke Cupcho, our counselor, and then Sam Leonard, who's an English teacher. And then, like Brian said, I'm on that team. We meet the SMA folks pretty regularly.
And for now, we meet with them separately, and then our plan is to bring them together. Sorry, Rex.
And we're then on top of that, we're in the initial stages with a district kitchen team.
Yeah.
It's kind of working through that as well.
Yep. Yeah, and like there are things like district kitchen that again have separate meetings. We are kind of working through that and developing that. In the next few weeks, we're gonna really start to ramp that one up because it's gonna finish first, but we just kind of had to get to this point to basically say, this is where it's going. These are the finalized programmatic numbers for that. And then we'll really hit the gas on that. And the stadium wise, we were actually even we had a full day workshop with our landscape architect and some of our probably 4 or 5 team members otherwise, that we just kind of really kind of pushed the envelope on kind of the nuances of the stadium and the parts of the stadium, the seating and, track and field and the relationships of everything. There's some really cool stuff that's kind of developing. If you want to go to that site plan and kind of developing that where that stadium sits is actually kind of starting to allow a little bit of at least an opportunity for us to kind of even capture a really cool southern view of the Capitol Dome. It's actually really kind of a cool aperture of right in between the track and field and the building. And so we're kind of trying to protect that a little bit if we can. Again, pretty early, but those are fun things that kind of develop from these conversations, and we'll be able to show you. The stadium obviously is is another year away from really getting into that process. And we will probably touch on it time and time again between now and then, but before we really have to kind of nail it down, we have a lot to do before then, and since it's kind of not gonna be built until after the existing building is torn down, we do have some time. But it's still really important that we're talking about the bigger moves. But again, to review, what you've seen is that our existing gym is staying. We're building and designing that PAL high school just to the south of that, utilizing that existing auxiliary gym space to the south end of the existing gym, giving PAL students an opportunity to have a larger activity space than we probably would have ever built for them from a new standpoint. And then radiating this gray box, kind of radiating up from the existing gym, taking up some of that parking, leaving some room for parking on the east side. And then leaving that existing parkway that we were, during the master plan, we just weren't, there wasn't enough information or progress to know that we could leave that there during construction. We were thinking maybe we had to abandon that and demolish it early in order to build a new high school, and then Brian was gonna have to really kind of figure that out from a programming standpoint and finding locations. But we've confirmed now that that's not necessary, and we can leave that there, and everybody can kind of go to school as they expect. The district kitchen up in that northwest corner, up by the facilities building, that's actually kind of turned into a pretty ideal spot from with regard to all of our options, but it's got good truck access, good site circulation, and then still a strong relationship to the rest of the district, pretty centralized for delivering food service everywhere and whatnot. So, and then some of the secondary elements that were, there's the parking that is going to be redeveloped or developed. Some of the track and field events will be developed on this existing practice facility. Again, those are kind of right now very, very high level, not exactly, we know they fit, we know they're needed, but we haven't really spent a ton of time laying them out. We kind of think it might even be advantageous if we have some budget to throw a little more parking up there if possible. We are actually even finding that we might even be able to put a little bit, so most football wants, they want to have a 1.5 football field idea for practice. They don't just want one football field, they want 1.5. So they can kind of, the way they structure their practices with linemen, those kind of things, they kind of want them on the field so they can do other things on the field. It's not critical, but it's ideal. And we might have that opportunity to actually kind of working a lot closer than having them over here, which frees this up for maybe future use or parking. Any of these kind of improvements, where again, they're kind of keeping those at bay with regard to whether or not the budget allows some of those improvements with regard to softball fields, tennis courts, and then any others like smaller soccer, football kind of look. But more than anything, that's where we were at. I think in the presentation, I think we also showed some of these blocking plans, but Ally will kind of review through those really quick.
Yeah, so we have a handout, and I just like keep on its 2 pages and pass it along. So the first part of this is really just for review the process, so you can understand how we landed where we did. The way to kind of start this is start with chunks of space and programs, so that we're trying to figure out where every single little classroom goes and kind of blocks of classroom. So that's what you see. The key is really a guide with the colors and the diagram you'll see next. Go ahead. So once we started arranging the spaces, we came up with 3 different concepts. Spyglass, ring around the courtyard, and Main Street. And as we looked at this with the teachers, there were pros and cons to each. One of the biggest things that helped us kind of organize this was the location of the Performing Arts Center. We looked at it in 3 different places. So we looked at it basically sitting on top of the current art wing. We looked at it over on the east side of the existing gym, and then we looked at it on the north. So it'd be a phased situation where it wasn't built until CTE was built elsewhere, so they could move over, and then the TAC would be built after that. There are a lot of great comments on just how this is the common space, how long that common starts to feel. It doesn't feel as much of a community space. You kind of get this one spine on the one to the right where the people are at the end of the hallway. And so ultimately we landed on this center concept where we didn't have to do any phasing or kicking people out of their spaces, where we can maintain the art wing as well as CTE and still kind of fit everything around it. The other part of that is no one is on the end of opening. It feels like a really solid community, because we're kind of all around this main courtyard space. I think one of the biggest concerns is what does the courtyard feel like, and so we'll look at that in a minute. The one thing that we did want to mention is, these precedent trips, and we kept going into these brand new gyms, which were great, but it was kind of just a solid box. And so we actually see keeping the existing gym, though it is saving money for the district. It's also this incredible architectural space that we feel like has a great opportunity to be highlighted. And it's kind of carrying that legacy of Helena High forward. One of the opportunities with that was actually to expose those blue lamp ribs that come down to the ground. So the next view is kind of shows the potential of what that could be. Between the main gym and the auxiliary gym, that's kind of where that concourse or corridor lands. And so this is kind of a warm-up, cool-down space in some of those activities, while also really highlighting those really cool architectural blooms coming down.
This is super rude, but we actually are excited. We're developing this into a much more developed space from an experience standpoint, so we can start to show what that idea really looks like. There might be concessions in there, some bathrooms, but as people are exiting a ball game, whether it's from the Ox gym or from the existing gym, we feel like there's a cool opportunity to just kind of spill everybody out into this really epic space with these more, maybe not historic isn't the right word, but existing, those whale rib beam structures that they should be experienced. Right now, they're kind of buried in storage rooms and small classrooms and kind of chalk top rooms for football and training rooms. And they're not experienced at all, and they need to be.
You see some sort of, some sort of Hall of Fame and some.
Oh, totally.
Movement in there where you're.
All,
memorializing the history of that building.
Chris Foya was a 1992 graduate of Helena High School and still has all sorts of records. He was a high jumper, long jumper, triple jumper, and basketball player, played basketball for the Grizz. I was on the phone with him I saw him the other day in Bozeman, and he's just a really talented guy. And he's got so much ink in there, the plaques and etching and everything, that I told him we're going to create his own room in here somewhere. But it's like, that's an important thing. There's those legacy athletics and drama and all the things that are in there. We want to make sure there's space for that. I don't think that that's necessarily a hard thing to do because you're going to have circulation anyway. But this lands to, I think, bigger and better opportunities for people to really kind of sit there and enjoy it. And it's not clogging up a pretty small corridor like it is now.
Absolutely. There's issues with where those blue lamps penetrate the roof. So we're kind of solving that by moving a roof up above them so that we're not trying to bring them down through a roof and try to waterproof. So it's a cool architectural feature, but it's also potentially solving some of the issues we're seeing right now. So I think the next slide.
Courtyard.
Yeah, kind of addresses the courtyard. So we landed on this courtyard idea and we wanted to explore some options within that. Is it surrounded all the way around? Do we start to kind of play with the space a little bit, open at the end? The courtyard here is actually about 90 by 120. So it's pretty big space, and we'll see a diagram of that. When we started to talk about that with Brian and Josh, they were like, honestly, to have it closed is just a safer option. There's football games. How do we keep kids out of the courtyard? And how do we solve that issue? And honestly, doing it this way, it's a much better space proportionally than what you start to get over here, which is like long and narrow and kind of canyon-like. But we did want to explore that option a little bit.
Those other open ones, they're open to the north, and being narrow, they're very much a darker scenario than a wider kind of enclosed courtyard. And we did look at that.
Yeah, so we wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to be in shade all day, all year, all day. So we did some sun studies. The one on top is basically when the sun is at the highest, at noon on the summer solstice. And you can see there's a little bit of shade there. And then also when the sun is at the lowest during the winter solstice at noon, only half of the courtyard is actually in shade, which leaves quite a bit of it in sun. Of course, we know like 2 hours later, it's probably all going to be in shade, but it still creates a really nice space. One of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did was start to think about, the building is 3 levels just because we don't have a lot of room for it. So the 3rd level is a partial level and it's kind of L-shaped. And you can see here, this is, north is this way. So the south side and the west side of the building are 2 stories to allow more light in. And then the north and east side are 3 stories. So we're trying to maximize the amount of daylight and sun that gets into that space.
Ally, would you say like what, 20% of the footprint is 3 stories? So it's not like it's,
Yeah. It's
not a lot of the building is 3 stories, but there's 20-25% of it.
Yeah, and then this is kind of a view of what the potential for that space could be. One of the great things, it's not all classrooms looking into the courtyard. On the east and the west side, that is a double-loaded corridor, and so there are classroom windows that look in. But on the north and the south, there's actually a corridor right there, so it's very experiential. There's lots of natural light coming into these corridors, and really just creating a nice experience, both inside and outside. This is kind of some views. I think you guys have probably seen this. So again, you can see here and up there, there's some potential for student seating and kind of less formal areas, glass into the courtyard and views.
Kind of fun to break it up to where there's some classrooms looking into the courtyard, and there's also a lot of circulation that's looking into the courtyard that can be more experienced. Because obviously, in a classroom setting, you want to make sure those kiddos are paying attention to class and not just looking at the courtyard. Not that they would, but.
So then this is really where we landed. Some things have shifted around a little bit, but generally this is really what the floor plan starts to look like. So again, we have our main gym down on the existing gym lands down here. Auxiliary gym lands kind of off to the east of there. We have our performing arts. Here we have that kind of main corridor. Breaks has actually kind of shifted over here now. It was originally here. And then we have locker rooms, training rooms, all the things are still stay in that renovated gym. Music lands on the east side of the building so that it's very easy, to get in and out of performing arts. There's kind of that connection there. And then the Commons really unites this south part of the building to the north part and creates community. Students come in, I guess stepping back a minute, we talked a lot about where the main entrance should be and where we kind of direct people to the main entrance. And we really landed on that Montana side of the building as the main entrance. This is where students would come in. And then kind of the secondary entrance, which is more monitored by the counseling, which is the blue box right there. That's kind of a secondary entrance. We're thinking that bus drop-off pickup, parent drop-off pickup before hours would be on the east side of the school, and then that parking might serve staff. Whereas most students would park to the north and west and come in this side of the building. Once school starts, the door on the east side will lock, and all students will need to come to that main entrance on the west side. So everyone will end up coming through admin on this side, but this is really where everybody comes into the school. And then moving north, we have the CTE shops on the north. We thought a lot about the visibility of that and really facing that kind of away from public view made a lot of sense. So that's on the north side. Art ends up on the first floor as most special services. The PBS, FLS, culinary on the first floor. We really had to think about what has to be on the first floor. We don't have a lot of square footage, so what has to be on the first floor. And then moving up, the library actually sits right on top of our admin, so they really have the money views, both looking down into the commons, but also to the Capitol, to Mount Helena.
And to the stadium. I mean, that library's got a serious pole position. It's awesome. Yeah.
And it's shared by all of the students, so everyone sees that space, which is really great.
Brian keeps on trying to make his office like right up.
Yeah.
Never shows up.
That's because it's gonna be the superintendent.
We've actually already seen your office.
Yeah, it's over here.
There's kind of this main stair that comes up from the commons up to the second floor. And at the top of that stair, there's actually kind of a secondary commons with a lower ceiling, kind of a different scale, and that's really the front porch into that library. Across the way, we have our DECA store and marketing. So it's it's kind of where most kids are circulating up to classes, so it's gonna get a lot of visibility there. And then, the second floor really, it mostly has like social studies, English, world languages. And then moving up to the third floor, we have science on the east side, and then, math kind of on the north. And some of our CTE classrooms, health sciences, are kind of spread throughout, but all the shops are on the first floor on the north side.
I just asked them to kind of zoom into that sort of, what Alan was talking about here, I think is kind of, this upper commons is not a room, right? So this is really more of a balcony type of space over the actual commons here. So the stair is really open, all the way open to this whole like two-story space. And it's all part of this, and then it's kind of connected to the library. This is all just gonna be sort of a little more intimate version of the commons where there's gonna be some softer seating, like she said, right across from the Deca store. So there's a cat shack, I guess.
Yeah, we did kind of have a view of that, actually here.
So next, we actually have the library. Talked a little bit about how open that is to be, so this is just another space for students to gather. Just a different scale of space with many different types of seating there.
That's where Brian can stand and pontificate over his students. Yes. Because you-
So the same colors, we took this into dimensional view, just so that you can get a better understanding of how that starts to look as it passes on the site. We have our existing gym with the barrel vault. We have our auxiliary gym. We mentioned that Cal is on the south side, and that auxiliary gym would be used by them during the day, and then could be used as a mat room.
Your computer just updated?
Just crashed.
Oh my gosh.
One moment, I'll try and get it back
Love that.
Technology.
to that slide here real quick.
Who's doing that though? First blush? What do you think?
Love it. It's super. I do have a question, Matt. When we went to the speeches yesterday at PAL, all the time, there's CTE speeches. Are you guys gonna wanna access that? And do you feel good that CTE is at the opposite end of the campus area, or?
Yes, so to answer your question, yes, I would imagine a number of our kids are gonna pursue CTE, and that's probably the piece I'm most excited about, because I don't have 2 or 3 kids right now that use it. I probably would have 5 or 10 times more that would do CTE program. In terms of how do they get to and from, I think that's a Brian and I thing in terms of scheduling. I wouldn't envision, like our kids needing to be escorted or anything to that capacity. I think there's ways we can go about doing it where getting kids from PAL to that CT area, can be subtle. Even that east side.
Let's just walk down the same.
Yeah, that east side, the building, I can see our kids kind of walking there.
Guess they can choose whatever they feel comfortable with. They can go inside or go outside, right?
Yeah, there's an element of that too.
Walk down the hallway, walk down the hallway.
There's gonna be some kids, that totally doesn't phase, and there's gonna be some kids that, might, kind of want escort to start, and then sort of go out of the nest.
The distance is still gonna be close enough that with the passing period, they're gonna be able to make it. I mean, it's not a big deal. I remember hearing horror stories down in Bozeman when they were one school. There were kids that were in their alternative school and had a science class that was clear across campus. It took about 8 minutes to get over there, right? So we're not experiencing anything of that nature. So whatever this fastest looks like, so you still work simple for a kid to get from one south end to north end within 5 minutes. Agree? Yeah.
I'm excited for you guys to expand your opportunities by having separate and yet connected.
Yeah. Were there questions?
Excuse me. Still coming back up, Mark?
Yeah, I'll improvise.
I think just one cool thing about that courtyard, I don't know, they have a plan for maintenance and things to get in and out of it, where it'll be a walkway, a hallway, and then it'll double as folks can get in and out. I mean, that is kind of a genius concept of a door system where the school users won't even know that there's a maintenance access from one side, but there will be. That's a problem like with our courtyards now, in Old Helena High.
Yeah.
That's a great solution. It's really cool.
I love that you call them courtyards, Joe.
Huh?
I love that you call them courtyards.
Yeah, gravel pit on one end and, yeah. I know.
It's super enticing, those areas.
I just had one question. With the CTE classrooms, will those all be shop area or are they gonna be in?
There's kind of a mix, so
Okay.
there's, Autumn has a classroom right next to their class. They
Right.
have a computer lab that's kind of shared throughout. Those are down in the shop, so the
Okay.
ones that are more tied to
Yeah.
wood shop.
Makes
whatever, those things, those are down there. so-
Right.
And then they have visibility in and out, and I think one of the exciting things about having CT as part of the building, it's gonna expose a lot more students to it. And potential for a lot more of them to try some of that stuff, so it's great that it's now gonna be connected and there'll be visibility in the classrooms that are part of CT that are not like the CAD, architecture. Health sciences is actually Everett Health Sciences,
Okay.
I think, trying to remember what, I guess marketing,
Like DECA?
robotics. Yeah, they're kind of mixed between, and I think there's some nice potential for some interdisciplinary
Okay.
connections there. One of the cool things that we have programmed is actually like the class, like a step classroom, kind of like what you see in a college.
Like a lecture space.
Yeah, teachers lecture space, there's a lot of great use for that, so that's gonna be, accounting, it could hold up to 60, but it can be used for film, for sports, it can be used if there's a couple classes that one, are having a, a guest speaker or something. So we found a lot of use for that outside of just accounting, because we're just really, we're thinking of a space, we also have a maker space that we're talking about. World Languages likes to do a lot of cooking and crafting, and that space could really be used by anyone. It's kind of located near them, but it's just a space to do activities that may be a little bit messier than you want to do in the classroom, and there's sinks and stuff, so that's one of the things that we're providing. So again, health sciences is here, it's in the south of, science classrooms, and the CAD is right up here, these are on the third floor.
To sort of reorient us after that crash, I'm sorry about that. First floor on the left, second floor in the middle, third floor on the right. With regards to PAL is actually a whole floor up. So the first level of PAL is on this middle one. So this would be the first level of PAL, connected to that existing, auxiliary, or the secondary gym up there.
It's based on the street grade is what you're saying.
Yes, yeah. There's about 16 feet kind of difference between that Billings Avenue side and then the second level of PAL over here. Well, we can, the next thing was gonna be kind of walking through some of the plan elements, and I'll zoom in as we can.
Existing gym, which we have to take into consideration, is about 5 feet higher than down at the CT. So we will have some ramps and some, there's actually kind of a full opportunity to have a little bit different levels in the commons, just to create another kind of type of space there. And then we actually have, this, it's kind of cool because the accounting classroom, that's more of a lecture style. The ramp works out to be kind of right outside, so you can enter at, from the hallway at the top of that many stairs, and then you go down the ramp in the hallway and you can enter at the bottom. Which is kind of working out nicely, hopefully this continues to work. But that seminar room is kind of right in the middle, so it can be used by really anyone. What's that? And then, do you wanna?
Question about, when we were talking about Capitol High, the courtyard was also like cafeteria space. Is that the same concept here?
I think there's an opportunity still out there. I think, teachers have talked about having class out there, so creating seating that allows for more like lecture, collaborative teaching. The commons is pretty large, so we're not depending on that for still out space, but I think it's a great place for kids to kind of go hang out instead of going to their cars for lunch.
Yeah.
The lunch or the food service area is right.
Is right there,
There will
okay.
be flexible tables that can set up in this room for lunches. And it's actually we talked about the fact that it probably has an opportunity to kind of grow over the years if there's ever a need for 2 lunch periods or something. So I think it's gonna set itself up for a long time of adaptation.
Okay. And it's right across from is that the art Or the theater right there?
art
Yeah.
still.
Yeah, so this is our performing arts, so you can enter comments somewhere to get into the performing arts. Stages down here right across from our theater, like workshop. This is drama. And we have some dressing rooms, makeup rooms here to support kind of all the theater stuff. And then coming down this hallway, we have choir, orchestra, and band. Their practice rooms are accessed off the main hallway, so everyone can use them. And then kind of on the other side of that hallway, we have our auxiliary gym with a little bit of seating, and enough space to support 2 courts going the other direction for tournaments and stuff like that. And then let's see here.
Then it all kind of opens up into that sort of,
Hallway, that sort of trophy hallway, lobby type space from the gym.
that's gonna connect those two.
So usually that's where we're gonna take some of our existing locker rooms and some new PE locker rooms. The varsity locker rooms are actually over on the north side of the existing gym. And then we have things like PE storage, training rooms, weight room kind of over here. And so that existing gym would get a facelift, we make sure we update mechanical, get some paint in there, maybe some north facing windows. The whole north side actually has existing windows covered up. Which
So we could likely put in either clear glass, or cowl wall. We'll work through kind of what are the pros and cons of it.
A translucent
Which,
panel.
yeah, it's a translucent insulated panel, which lets.
We
it-
added Cowell's, clear blocks into a gym space one, and it revitalized the whole thing. It's unbelievable the difference it puts into the gym, even in terms of discipline.
Yeah, you have to manage glare, but it's like Calwall is really good for that kind of, it doesn't create super bright spots.
Yeah.
Especially on the north.
It really refracts and floods light everywhere. It doesn't have, direct beams. Hey, can you direct us back up to the cafeteria, where the free forming kitchen and place will be? Robert? He's sitting over there. We were bouncing on this idea a minute ago. I saw you. Pillars out there. What's your vision of how are kids gonna get intersected with food in that area?
Well, now it's to kind of see how you open it up, because it looks like that's wall. So the only way I can get the kids in, is it just that little green line there, or is it the side over here? Is it full? Wherever you open it up, yeah. Okay, so that's not a set thing then, it just gives you an idea what's it.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, if you have a place, because like I say, the design I give you guys, when I give most, the kids kind of walk into the place where they can walk around instead of going through lines everywhere. They can go in, they can go from this space to this space, we can get, maybe they're gonna have their sandwiches, or they're gonna have this, or they're gonna have to grab and go, or the pre-purchase items, or go over here to the panini grill to be able to take their sandwich that they just got over here. There's all kinds of options, but we talked about making it more open. Every spot we went to back over to Washington, they were all line, because it's efficiency and quickness. That's not what we're trying to get. We're trying to get an inviting place to go. So having a larger space and a place where kids can come into the kitchen, get their stuff, and then go multiple lines out, that would be certainly great. So having.
We have a lot of opportunity to work through how that works with the commons, and you can see this sort of, the sketching here, some stair, we can reduce some of that width a little bit. Right now, it's quite generous.
Maybe not, I say that for different answers, maybe not necessarily where the walls are, but, what's your vision for point of contact for 2 islands? One island, left side island's gonna have burger and a sandwich, the middle's gonna be salad bar, the right hand side of the left island's gonna be, pizza, and then the right island, left side's gonna have, what's gonna happen there?
Well, I actually brought it, for example, that I want to pass around, didn't want to look at that, have a concept of what we did for the idea was.
Just give us a quick rundown of your brain.
Real quick, and my idea is, when you walk in, you get 2 major islands. Each island's kind of almost at an angled shape that allows the kids to go, they can start over here, they can get with stuff for the entire meal at the end, where they each shares, they can get all their fruit special stuff, and then they can walk straight up to a cashier. Over here is another section that's similar, but there are big screens in front to say where the food is, what's it on each one of these islands. The island on this side, the kids can get their pizza, they can get, or their pasta, and then they get over here is their the burger bar, and it's all set up so it's preset. And then once they go through there, they go to the cashier, or they can go over to maybe go to their waffle maker. They want to make breakfast for lunch, or they want to do the panini grill, or they want to do the toaster. And on this one over here is a grab and go where they pre-order drivers beforehand. The kids come up and they can actually just get their item and go because they've already paid for it. It's all ready to go with their name on it.
All this kind of stuff is designed to give the kids multiple options, multiple ways to get in there, so.
Hey, listen, it's, what I wanted to illustrate is that he's in his brain, right? So we're thinking through what that looks like. And there's gonna be a lot of time that we will work together in the warming areas, in the new buildings, working with the design team to make sure that works. Okay.
Remote service to the north too, we haven't really talked about that, Robert, but we have an opportunity for another.
That's great, because again, another place, the quick grab and go stuff, it's sandwiches pre-made, salads pre-made, that kind of stuff, it's, you know, like little big pastas we're gonna do, that kind of stuff, in this place here.
So we have some places to kind of spread out all those kids, because hopefully they'll want to stay on campus and here, so we'll be serving more students and keeping them in the school.
I think the one lunch makes it, there's so many kids at the same exact time, we gotta cover so many bases in order to keep them on campus, so. You keep them moving, because you can't expect them to come to one spot, because it's just, they won't stay in the line more than 10 minutes, that's it.
But that commons is also big enough that you could create a smaller, like grab and go point of sale opportunity across the other side if you wanted to.
Yeah, I kind of figured we'd have little carts to be able to move over there and again, multiple stations that kids can use. It's like the whole thing about the vending machine. They don't have, it's another place they go to get meals. So again, getting kids opportunity with one lunch, they don't have to, if they're on the side of the building, they don't have to go all the way to get, they can get multiple places. It's great.
Question here.
Where is the front door? Where is the front door? Shut the front door.
Yeah.
Okay,
We're right there. Oh, okay.
okay.
That's the west side front door.
Yeah.
There's a east side front door that we locked after a certain time.
Does the deliveries and stuff coming in and out of the kitchen, like,
I think we're gonna have to like think about that.
Yeah.
So you're kind of bringing deliveries to your front door.
right?
So I think we're gonna need to think about what that looks like. Do we start to cover some of it so that some of that happens like a little bit?
It doesn't burn.
So, yeah, that should be a design consideration. We actually thought about lighting the whole admin down. Wasn't quite working as well, because then we have to increase what happened on the second floor to get to the library above. So we've been kind of exploring that, but yeah, I think that's a good point.
Well,
Delivery for
it doesn't have to go, it can go east side where less traffic's at. And then I would unload on the east side instead of the west side where you see a lot of traffic.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be directly adjacent, right? It could. Correct, but the shorter distance is because in the snow time and winter, they're gonna have stuff on their shoes. They're gonna have to walk all the way across that and leave that stuff. And we're pushing carts from outside to inside, so. So the other thing is we can deliver this site, because the way it is, before kids even get out of bed. So that's not a problem. My guys start at 3:30 in the morning, so we can simply rearrange what schools go to where, so they can actually go here first before it's literally anybody's.
Scheduling on that's not gonna be a problem. I think the overall is.
Yeah, we're not going far, so it needs to be the first trip, because it'll be a larger delivery for that site.
Like you don't want us to drag that across the building, so it'll be powered.
And I'm not against it, like any established urban area is gonna have.
Yeah.
Constraints and
So I
that.
was just gonna say, I think from a landscape and a hardscape standpoint, and good wayfinding and sort of good directionality as there's a plaza developing here.
Yep.
We can really keep people's eyes off of this, and there's planting, there's ways that we can screen this really well. Pretty affordable too, and it's not gonna be like that, it's that ugly of space either. And it incentivizes operations to kind of just keep it a little bit more sightly too. So you get the back of a building that's really not seen by anybody, it can get into disarray pretty quick.
Right.
And frankly, we have no back of the building, so we want it to stay clean.
I think the constraints will try to make it a more clever solution.
Yeah.
3-minute warning, my friends.
I know.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, we have movies.
We'd love to cover, so as this year, we talked a lot about special education and not making it feel like it was in its own lane. We kind of segregated from the school. We had split it apart, and then when we met with that group, they were kind of like, it's great to have support from the other teachers. So we ended up putting most of those classes kind of here. We do have CC labs on the second floor and the third floor, so those classrooms are just spread out a little bit throughout the school. However, the functional language schools, the PBS program, the adult FLS, Those are all kind of in this hallway right here, just so those students can be supported better and the teachers can kind of support each other. The bus access on the east was kind of taken into consideration of getting guys in and out. So, that's one of the reasons why I kind of landed on the side of the building, but,
It will remain on the street, on Roberts Avenue right now. So they aren't pulling in. Okay.
Yeah, there'll be staff parking there, but we'll create a pull in from the street.
There's certainly
The bus parallel parking on the street.
Yeah, there'd be opportunity for other drop off to come into the site for closer drop off and handicap parking and that sort of thing on that side.
Special ed. And that's where you'd enter there to go to a basketball game or a theater or something like that.
Either way, but, parking wise, most of the parking is gonna be on the west side, so most of that, in fact, we're just about to get to some views that will be a little bit more telling in regard to what that experience will be. Okay.
Yeah, and maybe we should accelerate and walk through real quick the rest of the word. It's easier.
there's a Native American library here. So, thank you guys, Scott's on the north, culinary over there, so we don't have to go through the floor plan, but just giving you an idea of kind of where things are landing.
They're pretty far.
Just out of curiosity, why did you decide to make that a separate library area as opposed to a part of the main library?
But, so the Native American Library would be all the resources that our Native American tutors use. So across the district. Yeah.
Yes,
Across the district.
So that was like.
Okay.
It's a storage, like the storage, but like we don't have a spot right now to store all of the K-12 materials and or resources that are utilized across the district.
And then I guess just speaking to Powell a little bit, for Powell, we're looking at coming in being flanked, by admin and counseling. We're looking at kind of a nice commons. We've talked a lot about this, like family and consumer science room being kind of opened up to the commons, so kids could go use that to make breakfast in the morning lunch, but then it also service that, kind of, CTE program that's at Powell right now. We have science classrooms and art on the first floor, and then going up to the second floor, it's a lot of classrooms, but lots of space for collaboration. I think one of the great things is just being able to use that auxiliary gym all day. They really don't have that right now, and that was a big wish list that we can deliver, but it can also be used by the high school, kind of after health's done. So.
What's a major difference between what PAL has now and this is circulation wise and some of those kind of collision spaces and group collaboration spaces, there's just a lot more elbow room. It's just, I think that's gonna be a key difference of what they're used to now.
One of the other things we heard, is, we have a decent sized space for the food pantry. I know Michelle, the homeless liaison, she has all kinds of stuff. And she really wanted that to feel like an experience where people felt like they were more like shopping for household items and clothing and things. And so, so part of the idea is there we have this community room that you can enter right off of the secure vest building, so you're not going into the school. And then you can access some of the services and also use the food pantry, but that can also be used by by POP as well, so.
Where's the food service for Bell? Food service for Bell?
It's right here off the top.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
What was that? Oh, did you say
Exactly, same thing.
Okay, but where is the kitchen, you think?
I'm gonna throw a quick curveball that none of you heard yet. Ready?
Awesome.
Love this time right now. And we haven't vetted this completely out. I don't know if Josh knows what I'm gonna say, is that, at some point, Caitlin and I had a conversation around the sustainability of SAC. We're not gonna be able to run SAC at each school like we've been doing in the past. So I want to explore heavily, a SAC site at Helen High, a new SAC at Capitol, and one out in the Valley. So and then what we run through those is our early childhood, teacher pathways. So that would be a CTE program as well. So I may be asking for another space and a little playground.
I think Alex is gonna be more mad than me.
Yeah, no, wait, budget, yeah, I know. But, I'm not saying we don't have it already, but I think Josh and I and Brian, Brett, we wanna explore that a little bit further. If we're gonna keep school age childcare, in our district, we're gonna need to rethink how we do it.
I'm a little ignorant on that. What is SACS?
It's a after-school day, childcare. And so it's a kind of a preschool up to fifth grade.
So like another 1,000 square foot classroom size, is that? Excuse me?
35 square feet per kid.
Two rest.
So here's a question, anyone?
Yeah, we don't need to get.
Yeah, it's that, I mean, but you could use the comments and the
Exactly.
for that, right?
Absolutely.
You know,
That's what we're-
we need a storage space for all the stuff that we do,
But-
but.
Flex space kid.
Flex space, it's an area that maybe we already have it in, right? Maybe it's already in the walls of the design that we have. It could be a flex space that we're not thinking about right now, but just know that.
If you're talking about, we brought one to Bud County, what it was, they had an early childhood program, and they actually had a preschool in the classroom. So they brought,
No, I'm not,
like, they brought little kids
we're
in.
not afraid to run our kindergarten class out of that, one of those places too. It scares not out of parents at times, like I don't want my preschool kid with high school kids, but I tell you, I've seen it in Washington, and we do it. And you run your preschool programs, it's also good for your staffing, but it's also good for your pathways for career exploration of kids that want to be teachers. And that's where your curriculum comes through that classroom. Well, I also, at some point, I think we're online, but we're gonna try to pull it off at Carroll. So it's places that we're gonna grow our programs.
I don't think it's any different, because there used to be programs like the CUP program or something at CRA, where middle school kids would partner up with a kindergartner at the school they went to, and they would go once a week. So I mean, I think that's a win-win.
But anyway, it's something that's developed, I don't know when we talk about this week, Monday, so it's a need, and I didn't see it coming, but we're gonna have to talk about maybe that space, and there could be some tweaks. It may not be more square feet, but we're certainly gonna have to re-alter, maybe some of the space that we already programmed in. Makes sense.
Because they also provide a snack program during that time too, so they usually have access to water or some kind of a cookie thing or something to keep food warm.
And the other, some sort of a smaller playground. Do you remember walking by the center there at University of Montana, that small little daycare area, has that playground about as big as this table set up is? We're gonna need something in that.
So one of the, is that exterior?
Yes.
So one of the cool things, and we need to move on, so.
Connect that to your exterior transition, Tim.
Yeah.
Transition us to the exterior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have more to talk about in here, but it's gonna be fun to kind of get all of it in, and then some of the other details will come, but go to that site plan, Mark, if you have it.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so he's improvising, but the space in between that I kind of mentioned it earlier, that space where you can kind of see the Capitol Dome in between the track and the existing gym. There's this kind of currently where the current science wing is. That space down here is sort of, it's a dead end from a parking standpoint. It's kind of an underutilized space, and we're contemplating, and some of the cool ideas that have come up is that, so when we were touring some of the football fields and whatnot out in Washington, so Coach Dane Broadhead was like, a few ideas were just getting thrown around. He's like, if we could we do something that is like some extra turf area that is that like 1.5 football field kind of thing, but could we also do it like where little kids could play while there's a football game happening? And it's a thoughtful thing that usually it's ancillary. It's not planned for that, but I think through PE use, SAC, playground use, this open area can really activate through more hours of the day by putting some good, safe turf out there, and it can be kind of protected, but it's also just from a PE standpoint, it's exterior, flat turf that they don't have to use the game field. I mean, it really could be an area that is, and we were even talking like, there's even like the size of what was one of the dimensional things that was being discussed?
Flag.
A flag football. You could actually fit a flag football field on that area. And it would sort of satisfy all that other programming. Again, we're prioritizing the budget and can we do it? But at least maybe it could be master plan for that. It's really cool idea.
Some of you might have seen it at Carroll. During a Carroll football game, there's
Yeah.
a little area where kids play
Yep.
touch football.
Yep, probably just a little bit bigger though, yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly what we're trying to get rid of.
touch football.
Okay, now come back behind me.
Well, but here's the thing, it won't, in the concept we're looking at, and it's actually not, it's not behind it.
You're right.
Right.
And then the only thing I'd ask is that you got lighting there anyway, back off the light and burn it back down there at night. So that anytime we light it up, things happen that are better.
Yep.
Than is what happens in the dark.
So you said turf, that would be, they're thinking turf. I mean, what about HYSA and Queen City Soccer on the times when you would like to be out in the field, but the field's too muddy? You get outdoor exposure.
So the,
So many ways.
the big turf field will be striped for soccer as well.
Yeah,
I think anytime that you lay
but like team practice.
synthetic turf down, you're gonna use it.
Yep.
Anytime that it's gonna get used.
Yep.
So I don't, if it's a dead end, if it's not really a great place for parking, if it's a bad spot for just in general, then put turf on it. We make things
There's a
out.
lot of uses for it.
But
Let's go to the exterior views because we're.
Alec and Shane's gonna go.
What you're saying, it doesn't sound like it's, in playgrounds, it could be lighter, you could burn your whole budget on it, so
Yeah.
it really depends on what you pick, so.
And I think really what we're thinking right now is just space,
Yeah.
and maybe that equipment involved with the users.
Yeah, or none at all, just like, just romp around place and
Yeah.
throw, I mean, we could make that work, because there's that archery, golf into a net, there we go, a lot of space that you could do out there, yeah.
So as far as exterior development, one of the spots we started first before we even looked at the high school, the Helena High School, is that south end and Powell. And we started to skin it a little bit. We know some of the masses of it. We know we have a limited amount of space between Billings Avenue and where the front door is. So how does that parking arrangement work? How does the entry start to look? How do we identify it as Powell rather than Helena High School? And that is something that's a very, very high priority for the Powell students, Powell staff, to remain that autonomous identity or to keep that. So we actually started skinning that and looking at that. What's the materiality? How does it fit? What's the scale of it? What's the mass of it? What's the height of it? So here's some representative views of that. That actually is something we paired with some of what we looked at. We actually drew some of inspiration from some of the materiality we started to look at here to the Helena High School side. But we stepped back, and I'll pan forward into that now. We started looking at Helena High, theming these, and we're going to use terms from the area, from the context, the greater context. So this first concept is what we call switchback. Sorry, switching between all these programs. The buttons are different in every single one. So switchback, and I guess I'll remain seated for this.
Click through.
Is the switchback up a mountain, right? That's really, it's something very key part of the Helena environment here is how do we move around mountains? So this is maybe some examples of how that translates literally into architectural form, this sort of diagram up here. And below some ideas of how that could be represented form-wise in the building with overhangs, materiality, light, that kind of follow a shape. Kind of imagine yourself traversing up a mountain. So as we go into that, this is that main entry, and you'll see a lot of this. The views of this is at the west side. It's back from Montana. We want to have a very high presence from Montana Avenue across the stadium. So we already know that's a bit of a challenge. We have to give it pretty high confidence. Literally, it's got to be big. It's got to look like the front door. So you can see here to continue that switchback imagery on the building. We've sort of trailed this overhang that goes from the main entry doors up it, and this is the admin area, the offices, the main offices, library above, and then it continues up and around over top. This is the main commons area. So this main commons area has the potential for having a very, very high amount of glass. It's very dramatic. It's a proper grand space in this.
You can see that library, yeah, kind of that, it's got that corner there that really could be killer. Oh, I forget. Got it. Yeah, and that whole space up there is pretty much the library. So
yes,
lots of light, lots of views. That corner even is that really cool opportunity that you can overlook the stadium, because it, again, a window into the stadium idea is that we're kind of thinking the best way to lay out the stadium is all the seating will be on the west, facing back towards the school. So the school will actually have a view into the stadium. It's got a parking lot and some circulation plaza in between. But that way we're not looking at the back of some bleachers. And so we're really kind of opening it up to each other. And it's really, really kind of fun how it's developing.
I think even deeper on that is as you travel Montana, I like that stadium deep, more vertical on the west side, so that you have that presence of a stadium. Driving down Montana.
Totally agree. And we're using some of the grade and some of the seating's above grade, some of the seating is kind of using that slope grade to kind of nestle into. So there's some cost efficiencies in the construction of it, but also not super high, but it looks like a sunk in stadium. So.
Yeah, and we have 3 concepts here.
You're after, because the sun's in your back.
Yeah, that's actually a great advantage of putting it all in the west, is you're not staring at the sun for evenings.
Visitors only. Sorry.
There we go, zoomed in a little bit. So we're starting to explore materiality and rhythm on the building. And again, we have sort of 3 of these to look at. We discussed it with the building committee, and there's some preferences, some definitely some thoughts on what they like and don't like. And we're gonna integrate that in from these 3. So this is still the first one, and we're suggesting some brick, some metal panel, a wood look to tie us back to Montana environment, but it's a wood look metal panel. It's maintenance free. It's not real wood. And then some other kind of composite panels that are, again, low maintenance. We're going to explore colors with it and rhythm, but with these studies on this side, we're trying to show how we'll start to or can articulate the openings, the windows into certain spaces. Like this is a lot of classroom up here. So do we have tall, skinny kind of articulation, which rhythms or mirrors maybe some you know, like the forest as you drive through, kind of that rhythm of you know, looking through the trees, expand the aperture through the trees as you advance through nature. The next one we have, and we'll show all these sort of side by side to reflect on them, is strata. So strata is the layering of materials over time. So here we have an approach where we've shown these masses sliding together and overlapping and layering on top of one another. So this is that same view. Again, library above, main entry here, commons to the right, offices here, and student classrooms here to the left. This white box is undeveloped. I guess don't think we're going to paint it white necessarily, but we're really trying to focus on
very sanitary kitchen white.
Yeah. We're trying to focus on what's the language we're going to start with as we really develop the whole building. This one has some opportunity with more color. It's actually potentially a less expensive option because of the columns and the overhangs. Those can add structural cost. But again, that's something we'll balance with the grandness we have there versus this is a lower kind of tighter option.
Yeah, some of the feedback we got from the building committee on this one was, you know, they were excited about all 3 generally, particularly the first 2, but then maybe playing around with some of the slope a little bit on these. Can we take a little bit of that first one and add it into this one and just make it a little bit more dramatic? Because there were aspects of this one that they really liked that the first one didn't have.
What did they like about this one?
I think they're mostly reflective on the sort of the first context of like the arch of the gym. They kind of felt like it was sort of There was an homage to the, we're showing angles, but they kind of felt like that was kind of playing into the angles of the gym or the arc of the gym. That was one of the reasons. And then I think it was fairly simple in materials, a little bit less glass.
One thing that's nice about this is that commons, there's an opportunity to scale that down, because in the
Yeah.
previous one and the next one, it's like a three-story
It's
building. It
massive.
gets really
Very
tall.
Good.
Here, we can kind of pull that down a little bit, so it doesn't feel so big, just because those are a little more detached.
I like to think residents are budget conscious individuals, so they like the.
We did talk about that, yeah.
Yeah, don't think we don't discuss that with people.
Yeah.
It's always in our mind too. Additionally,
Calling them before.
We actually did tell them this is probably the most budget
I like
friendly.
Again, the parallel lines are boring for me. I think they're a little ugly.
And that's part of what they asked us to look at, and maybe those roofs actually kind of make it a little bit less parallel. And actually like these parts, really, the feedback on this one was like, no, we need more here.
Yeah.
Some of the roofs that we brought in the previous one, and we developed that and sort of put these together a little bit. One thing we want to do is we want to definitely put the dollar signs here more than, or all the way, this is all the way around the school. So we want to be simple here, but there's ways to make it more dynamic.
Yeah, the right hand, one back.
oh, other direction.
This area here, you know how that ramps out?
Mhm.
We don't see it on this whole view, but it almost ramps out and meets those peak lines of the arched gym and that line coming together.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just to the south fields, it's to the southern, solar exposure. There's a lot of good reason to kind of open that up to the south, but I think that what we want to try to do is how do we capture that same idea, maybe in a simpler structural way? But that's part of the process, is we want to kind of push back and forth until it hurts, and then we'll land on the right value.
I like the drama of that roof going up is really exciting. However, when you think about it as a human being standing, it gets really tall, like if you're standing under that. So I think that was something we talked about a little bit. Is it too grand? We don't want people to feel like we're not being.
We want to stay away from
dollars.
ostentatious
Exactly.
dollars.
And I think in looking at Capitol High's design, which I'm sure at some point you'll see, I mean, that's my only concern is that this is beautiful and this is the sense, but the design at Capitol High, even though it's not a new building at this extent, we've got to think smart about what the visual will be there
Yeah.
versus the visual.
What is the interpretation of dollar spent here
Right.
versus dollars over there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as you know, perceptions become
Yeah.
reality.
Well, what's interesting is that is one of the things, Ally kind of said this, that committee said, I mean, these are teachers saying, look, we spent a lot of time on the campaign trail saying we won't be doing this in too big of a way. We want to do it right. We want to do it exciting, but we don't want people walking around. Now, that's subjective, right? You could do a box and there's going to be somebody that's still bothered by how much
Absolutely.
dollars were spent on it, but it's our job to.
Or that it's not enough for spending.
Yeah.
Look at both sides, yeah.
I think, it's gonna come down to numbers. I can certainly explain numbers. If you do something looks dramatic, but doesn't have a dramatic cost, I go, yeah, it looks great. Look how much bang for our buck we got, because you got this. And we're talking about bringing SAC in. We're talking about adding playgrounds outside. We're talking about increasing the sense of community, which I think everyone is desperate for. They built this because they want Helena to be a place that they love to live. I like it.
In that second one, I can also see the train sidings in the sixth ward.
Yeah,
On the
Yeah,
side.
that's something that Mark has brought up. a couple
Yeah.
times, is-
yeah,
Yeah. See,
yes,
it's-
yes,
It's
I
like,
do too, yeah.
And you got one chance.
Yeah, for like 70 years.
yeah, for a long time.
Take us to the third option, Mark.
I first thought,
Just going into this one, that committee didn't tell us, or we asked them, can we pick one or can we eliminate one? And they did say, if we come back in 2 weeks, having developed two of them, the first two is what they picked.
Yes.
So this,
There was one person that liked this one the best.
Wait, Tim, say that again. They would eliminate. This one.
You know,
Okay.
they liked all three, but with us sort of pushing our chips in the middle of the table saying, if you had to let go of one of them, which would it be? And they said this one. Now, that said, they did the right thing by saying, but we like some of the sort of the vertical rhythm of this one and some of the warmth of the wood. Can we explore that in the other versions? That's the whole point of this, is that we can take pieces of each and see how they develop into these.
So, yeah, and we want them side by side to really, once we introduce it, consider them all as one chunk.
On your precedent tour, sightlines on the roof, see a more slant style design versus flat?
Subwall. So like the couple of them that were kind of more fly roof kind of things with the slants and sheds and planes. There was a couple like that, but then like the Ridgeline High School, which was the last one, and Liberty Lake that we saw. I mean, the Commons was almost hard to find. I mean, the main entry was evident, and you went in and it was this massive space, but it wasn't some big obvious grand move. It was just a big brick building that was pretty, I mean, Liberty Lake is actually a pretty highfalutin area a little bit. So, but at the same time, their school it was all block of brick and dark glass. It was really nice looking, but yet no moment of holy crap. And that's, so using Ryan Schulte's terms, he actually saw that first one. He actually said, this isn't just holy cow, this is holy shit. Yeah. So, and I loved that he said that because it was a way for him to describe, is this too much? And he didn't say that because he didn't love it. He was just like, are we balancing those scales? But then he saw the second one and kind of said, okay, that's a good wow, but maybe not enough wow. Right? So I think that drove us to kind of say, do we need to marry the first and second one a little bit?
Amy, but maybe Tim, on a flat pitched roof versus a slanted roof, are we better off in this environment to have water runoff or sit?
You can go either way, like the airport is flat exists, but this one, the other thing to keep in mind when you do the shed roof, mechanical systems usually live up there, so it becomes.
We have a lot of other roofs that would be flat. Yeah, and I'll go ahead and say it's better to have all of them drain, so to speak.
Because otherwise you flat and then you depress them into right?
Cabinets, yeah.
You gutter them out somehow.
Yeah.
And I just think mechanically, let gravity be some of your friend and move through some of that. But
If we're talking about roofs, what about solar? Where are we with that?
So we are planning the structure to hold solar, so we're including some additional dead load in the capacity of the structure to take it.
And that's in any one of these versions, could accommodate solar.
Honestly, probably the best spot for it might be on top of the auxiliary gym, but there's a lot of other areas that we're gonna test areas, so.
One of the things that happened at Bryant was that they kind of created those pedestals for the solar to sit on, but then it wasn't in a good spot when you connect to electrical and all the things that you need to connect to. So I moved onto the gym roof. We did a ballasted system there, which worked out well. So I think there's some consideration where it needs to connect to, where the best sun exposure is, some things like that. We're not planning on doing pedestals or something that goes through the roof membrane, but I think that there's some other options, even like there's a clip that gets Nicholas. There's a clip that you can weld onto a roof that then takes the panels when it's time. So I think there's options, but we wouldn't plan, we plan where it goes, how to accommodate it when it's time for it. But it wouldn't be part of the project. I don't think the funding supports that.
I think there's a fear, and I'll say it out loud, I think there's a fear of a slant roof. What other nearby neighborhoods, new high school builds that have that same roof line?
Wait, say that.
East Helena just built one with a slant, and they maybe want to be a little different than that, and so maybe the slant's not an option because of other districts close to us.
And I think that's an interesting point that, it's like us and Brian we were part of that project.
Yeah.
Mark in particular, but what's interesting about that one, it's not a big fly shed plane. It's actually just a tapered parapet wall. So it's really just a line, but I think that that's the question is do we want to separate ourselves architecturally or does that matter?
Yeah.
Right? I
Right.
mean,
So I
I
think
think
it's
it comes down to, you know, I
I may
think.
not want to mention it out loud, but that's the reality is that what do we have
Yeah,
here?
are we trying to one up them? Are we trying to do our own thing and don't care what they
It's the
do?
reason I asked if you saw those same north lines in other parts of the world.
Yeah,
Like it's.
oh yeah, it's,
Oh,
there's only a few that you're really gonna do.
Right, right, yeah, right.
And I think they're gonna look for a unique identity that says this is our schools. I mean, when it gets down to it, they're gonna want it to blend to the retro gym. They're gonna want like a dispersion of wood. We like that, inclusion in it throughout. I mean, they literally looking at it like, this is what we're excited about.
We can do the Sydney Opera House if we want.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you have some.
Went to a different cause.
Mark's hard though, because that, he's telling the roof is that's a full flat roof.
It's very smartly done. Yeah, we,
Look like, there's options there.
yeah, and you built it, right? Yeah, so I mean, we got a few people in the room that really.
Yeah.
I will tell you one more anecdotal.
Yeah.
So I did Bozeman High School back in 2007 when it was still one. This is when Google Earth was just first coming out. So we made the courtyard. Whole plan was to make the courtyard into a space that could be seen from Google Earth. So there's a hawk head in there that could be seen from Google Earth. And I can see the same thing, have terraces that you guys, similar to you guys did at Central. And have that kind of stepping stone in a place to gather.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's fun.
That's a cool
Yeah.
generational thing. Kids are looking at things on a device and they'll be the ones to see that.
Jen,
To me, the holy, whatever you wanna call part, comes from, it's not, you have the same roof in 1 and 3, but in the switchback, the way you have kind of the bottom half of the exterior construction going into, I think that's a walkway in, that is just literally pulling you
Yeah,
in to that building. And it's that combination that does it for me. It's just like, it just screams.
yeah, your eye starts at the top and it draws it all the way down to really where you're actually entering the building. It's architecturally drawing you in.
switchback.
Yeah, yeah.
I personally like switchback too, but I'm not married to one or the other. We'll see where the committees land.
Well, if the cost is, you could maybe take out a little bit of the glass or something.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
that's
we've
kind
talked,
of what our project, that's what Shane and Alex are saying is that that's a lot of glass.
Well, interestingly,
And I like it.
it looks, it may not be intuitive, but it looks like Ascend's probably less expensive. You have that, similar approach like you do visually with the switchback, but you can do your parapet and your soffit, that top leading edge. I mean, with a SIPS panel, that covers it right there. You're not framing. Whereas like the strata, you'd have these frame build outs that would be, I mean, they're beautiful.
to create the depth.
That depth would probably cost, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like the other, you're just raking the outside of the structure and then you're throwing SIPs on the top, and it's seems to me like a good balance of a good look with also being economic. I don't know if you.
For building type, I mean, this is a type 2 building. Can we use structural insulated panels? I don't think we can.
Oh, you can. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say all
But
those
nonetheless, it's
windows,
sort of the same concept. It's
Similar, yeah.
little tag and
You can go
structure.
CLT, but
I'd say all those windows, like, while that looks really appealing, it looks off-putting to our barely getting the bond passed. Like, I know there are a lot of complaints about those windows of Central, like using our taxpayer money. You know what I'm saying? So like, I've heard it around. So, I mean, I like the more middle, like you said, like maybe, yeah, strata a little up, but not.
That's a really good comment, because we do want to play around with like, how much is just enough? How
Yeah,
much is too much? And we want to be able to land in that. This is about experience for the next 7
Yeah,
decades, but at the same time, we want to do a responsible job of like, and when people talk about, sometimes they talk about too many windows, they don't realize it still has to be, we still have to have siding, and we're probably not going to side it with something like T111 siding from a residential house, right? We're
Yeah.
going to side it with something that is institutional, quality of a type 2 high school building in Montana. So we're talking $40 a square foot versus $80 a square foot for 2,000 square feet. You know, so it's not like we're spending millions and millions of extra dollars on glass, but it is a measure that can add up to being too much.
Yeah.
So that we want to play around with that. It's the interpretation of it, we just said before.
Rex, we are at 1:04. This is your meeting though, so you tell me what we want to do next.
Well, trustees, it's your time, so honor that. How close are we? I mean, what do we got?
I think that's it.
That
Yeah,
is it, that's kind of,
that's all I
Yeah.
have, sorry.
I like the brick. Like, if you look at this one, the brick is used to draw you in. If you look at number 2, the brick with the wood, there's less glass, but to me, that part feels very warm.
This-
The brick in the strata,
Boring.
yeah, but down
Yeah,
here,
that was it.
That's,
that end by the gym, that interior is very warm, and maybe you could keep this, but change some of the materials, make it a little less
Yep.
glass, and people feel better. I don't know, but.
No, and we honestly, at this point, at this phase, for the first go,
yeah, right.
we are always and intentionally kind of going dial some that's way up, dial some that's way down. And we hear that feedback so we can understand where the comfort levels are. We got leather skin, so that's good that you guys say, hey, that is not good. That's where.
What is the cost? So is that little part under like the H and B and the switchback, that sticks out? Is that something that sticks out, or is that?
That's a stair that goes up 3 floors.
Okay.
Yeah. So like the top two are pretty glassy, the bottom one is just kind of a different expression. Everybody kind of preferred the top two.
Class there.
Yeah.
Bottom felt crazy to us.
Yeah, we don't want to.
And how much extra cost is involved in projecting something like that?
Actually, it's gonna cost more just because it's more square footage, but a lot of times the sticking out is coming from the rules and codes of egress. Right, and so like either we have to grow the building around it or modify how it's laid out inside so the doorways can access corridors, that can access the stairs. So a lot of times you'll naturally end up with either more square footage or something sticking out.
That makes a ton of sense. I mean, I'm sure I would hear from people, you spend how much money on a stairwell? And I'd be like, well.
Yeah, you have to get out. Yeah.
It's just an important part of the building.
Yeah. And I think maybe it's more like, do we get a little bit more fun with the classroom areas of the building and make that stair, even though it's sticking out in sort of a highlighted element, maybe we can be really safe with that and just stick with like vertical metal siding that isn't really saying much. It kind of goes away, even though it architecturally sticks out, but everywhere else, your eye is drawn to the more glass, more color, more articulation or something. We'll play around with what is really the element that's standing out. One of my least favorite things about the St. Peter's Health Hospital Tower is those glassy stair towers. You can't even, unless there's a fire, you can't even access them. So to experience it, it's not even like you can use them. It's like they're emergency exit only kind of thing. And it's just,
Yeah, I would say in this case, those stairs are at the end of a hallway, and so at the end of a hallway, we really want glass and light, and so they're providing that for the whole hallway behind them.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
For me to decide on how big a commons I want, or we want, just personal. I want to know what the stadium looks like so you can see from Montana on the corner. When you're looking through the stadium or you're coming down Montana to see the
We'll
front
dig into
entry of the
those.
school. So I want to see those elevations. And then I'm like, because I think people would go, is it definable front entry or not from the west once you get the stadium sit?
I do think
So-
it helps if
Yeah.
all the seating is on the west side, so
It
that.
will, but you're gonna have to
it's
put
not
some
blocking.
seating on the east
Not the way that we are looking at it right now.
for a AA football game. So I mean, those are the things we gotta figure out if we're gonna have any seating on the east or not. Okay.
so it's our
I don't know.
understanding, it's optional.
Yeah, I think we've looked
Okay.
at it,
But-
and we're splitting the numbers.
Yeah.
I guess I just wanted,
Yeah.
I don't know all the details, but I'd like to see how
I
the
agree.
campus lays out. Then you're gonna know what front entry the team's gonna wanna have. Like,
we can make the visiting team sit in their cars.
I know, I mean, yeah, they're gonna be walking on the other edge or It's just so I don't wanna get.
It's like Carroll College.
If for a state,
It's all on one side.
AA track meet, what are we gonna do? What's that look like? What is I think that needs to be seen, so you know.
Where's your
what it looks like.
100, where's your start and.
Yeah, just so you know what that is, and I think it's gonna guide a lot on what that commons looks like.
Well, I think if you probably have technology, put us in a car, and head north down Montana and look out a car.
Literally, what we just talked about.
That'll be
Yeah,
fun to see.
just see that sideline of what's that, 4.5 feet, 5 feet. Now, we're talking that, I have a feeling that wall of the stadiums driving down is gonna block into that from there.
Well, there's a
until you
window.
get to the north.
There's a window as soon as you get past like the Stewart Homes kind of stuff, and you get
There's a
right.
window there.
There's a really cool vantage point of seeing into the high school, seeing down into the bowl.
I see you driving up south, driving up towards Capitol, looking to your left, there's gonna be a window before you get to the stadium, past Todd Shop.
I think we're gonna cause a few accidents on.
That's what I was gonna say. That's gonna be, I'll be the first accident
Yep.
on both sides. Looking, so I'll be looking over and you go, oh my God, I'm driving. No, I was looking over here, officer.
Oh,
Yeah.
He's gonna let you off scotch-free.
So here's,
He's gonna get it.
I think mission accomplished. I don't know if we ever landed, we didn't intend to land and make decisions today. Really, this was a time just to open up and have a discussion. So you have far more information now. It probably far more confused than we were 20 minutes ago.
Do we have any of the same sort of stuff for PAL?
yeah, I was just gonna ask that question.
Yeah. Cause they were.
We're actually, actually Tuesday, we have our next building committee meeting with them, so we're still developing.
Exactly my question.
But yeah, we're gonna have a little more development on the plan,
Adrian.
on the exterior, we're gonna have we're trying to use the same language as these, but, so it'll look similar, but it'll feel related, but they're, they're
You're
cousins.
going,
They don't clash.
Right.
your other question will be how does it look for the new central district kitchen?
Pal said they really wanted theirs to be brown and gold.
Oh.
I seem to remember that too.
Yikes.
That's a no.
Certainly gonna help the
It was
collaboration.
It was doing so well.
I thought it's gonna be blue and gold.
Pick the colors.
Blue and gold. Oh, there we go.
Mark wanted blue and gold. We want the whole thing. blue and gold.
That I would do.
We'll just restate it.
Restart.
How's that?
Trustees, do you have more questions?
I'm sure we do, but.
I'm more interior, and maybe I was coming in and out, so I don't know if I missed. I know that there's talks of possibility of like a wellness clinic or a health clinic at some point. Anything you want to share or maybe for a later date?
Flexible space. Yeah.
For,
I think we talked about flexible spaces for like therapy rooms and things. The things we looked at that when we went visited in Washington, sorry, to take over and answer.
No, please.
But we
go
talked about it in a programming aspect, but we also decided that we wanted it to be secure and safe. So the schools we saw with clinics in them, they had areas for therapists and or other services one day, but they also vetted them through their main entry. So it wasn't like a standalone exterior entrance to the clinic. So they, like Quincy had one. And so then they went in through the main entry, but it was close to the main office. And so I think we put those programming spaces in this design. I don't know where they're sitting, but they were other flex spaces where an extra therapist or two.
Because they really need to be flexible because you use them one day a week and then what's the other
Yeah.
4 days look like?
Yeah, we
That's our
have
idea.
some like itinerant spaces and some spaces that serve like, the health, there's 2 different health clinics that serve PAL. One serves PAL, one serves Helen High, so they have their spaces and kind of their group therapy spaces, so we are accommodating those. And then I think there's a couple extra offices as well.
In the counseling area.
so that can be coupled with like the physical health too? Like
So-
physical health needs of students? I guess that's what I don't.
Yeah, I mean, we have like space for a nurse health office, but if you're thinking of like a health clinic that serves community members, we don't have that as part
Or
of the
just
program.
student population, I guess is what I was.
Yeah, student population
Yeah.
is served, yeah.
Okay.
How about like smaller breakout rooms,
Mhm.
often associated with libraries? I didn't see them in there, but.
Yeah, the
I'm curious.
library has, they have a few rooms. They have a conference room. They have kind of a sandbox where where they can do all kinds of, you know, activities, screens and stuff. And then they actually have, their computer lab in there. They have a podcast room. They like, that's used quite a bit, and they like having it in the library so all kids can kind of access it really easily. So.
What you're seeing there, is the admin area below it. So
Yeah.
you're kind of ghosted in there from a level below, but yeah, so she's talking about some of these red spaces that are just.
Yeah, and those have been updated a little bit. We met with the librarians on Tuesday. So it looks a little different, but generally this is kind of the layout with the conference rooms kind of down on the southeast, and then the computer lab up on the north east. So
I spoke with the Helena High librarians yesterday, and they're very excited about their input about this design. and everything. So they were very excited about it.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited.
Sure we'll have more of these.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like,
Yeah, I hope so.
Productive.
So,
very good.
lunch was delicious. Thank you, Robert.
Yeah.
I'm a serious cookieaholic, and that was a really good cookie.
Hey, RB cookies.
Might be the best cookie in hell. It was really good. Thank you.
Tim, good.
I'm good, yeah.
I think for you guys, you know, jumping in and listening, getting, you know, closing that knowledge gap, certainly helpful.
And we talk to DAC basically every day now, so they're fully, have drank from the fire hose and caught up.
Can we send this off to Jason Russell if we haven't yet?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think he's at the point now that he would be willing to take a look at what we got, so.
Otherwise, your expectation is that meeting notes go to this group?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great, I'm happy to do that.
Include Jason.
Yes, absolutely.
He's on there.
And guys, thanks for being there at PAL.
Oh, yeah,
Today.
it was wonderful. So the Milo, who's at Broadwater, was actually in my daughter's class.
Oh.
I need to ask her about him. And then Becky, who works in our firm, her daughter's Alice, who was also mentioned by one of the students at Central. So it's kind of funny because I feel like we were kind of connected to PAL
It's really cool.
when we didn't realize we were. Yeah.
There were like 6 pictures of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Classes.
Yeah.
That's one of our employees, Becky, that's her daughter.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was even, I know, she's a character.
Oh, yeah.
When we said, we were like,
You
is
meet
that
Alex
our
once,
Alex? And
It's
then,
like, I gotta hang out.
yeah,
It's-
we were like, is that our Alex? And we saw the red hair and we're like, definitely.
I was wondering why she's in so many pictures. I was gonna ask that question. Now,
She is a character.
yeah,
Hey, would you go ahead and adjourn the meeting for me?
Sure.
Since
Are we ready?
I think we are ready.
Okay, I will adjourn this meeting.
Thank you.
Hard job.